Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of BCSN SportsWrap. It's Brian Fulford, and joining me, look at that guy right there, none other than Jamie Walker stepping in. James, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm good. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Jamie Walker, no stranger to the Black College Sports Network or the SportsWrap. Hopefully, if you were watching this morning, you saw Jamie come in and get some extra credit. Me and James trying to get that extra credit work in with Doc. And, of course, glad to have Jamie on board, man. We'll see. Jamie, I hope I don't run you out. I hope you don't get too tired of me. As I told people last week, maybe you will be the person to kind of help us get back on track and do these shows in 2 hours instead of 3 or longer. Like sometimes we sometimes go.
Maybe so, man. It's stuff going on the next day, so we're gonna try to keep it concise. AD will have opinions, and that thing gonna stretch on, man. So y'all go back and forth and go at it. There's no time limit at that point, so I'm gonna keep it real, or else my wife gonna yank me slap off of this off these airwaves. So yeah.
That's what we needed. See, we needed a Mrs. And so we may have to credit Mrs. Walker for being the one to keep us on a time schedule. I love it because me and AD, we don't have them kind of. I'm not gonna call them problems. I'm gonna call them enjoyment structures.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Structures.
Thank you. We don't have that kind of structure in our life. So good to have you. Good to have you, man. Glad you're here. Coming up on the show, though, we've got our regular Sunday guest during the football season, Coach Farasi Norman, coming in to join us. Coach ain't going nowhere. And yes, even though AD is not on the show tonight, he will make appearance. At occasions when AD will drop in. We can't. I don't know. We can't quite release what and why, but if you know, if you pay attention in the HBCU sporting diaspora, his work is on display with his new job. And so I'll just leave it at that. And we'll wait for the official announcement, Jamie, which I hope it comes out this week, because I don't know if I can hold out for another week without telling the diaspora where Drew is,
Me either. It's time for the people to understand what the man is doing at this point.
Exactly. So we got a busy show. We'll do the best we can in terms of breaking down some of the what we like to do, the top 5 games from the past weekend. And almost like seems to be every week, whatever we predict to be the top 5 doesn't always go to script that way. So definitely some of those games that we thought would be the top 5 didn't turn out to be the top 5, but that's just how the game script goes sometimes. So we'll talk about that and a little bit more, spotlight some of the key players, key performances from the weekend, and maybe there's some interesting news and notes, and kind of take a look at some top 10 rankings. You know, we don't, the SportsWrap, the Black Collar Sports Network, we don't do rankings at the preseason level. We like to let the first 4 to 5 weeks of the season kind of play out before we publish the first set of rankings. And I'm told that after this upcoming week, Jamie, the official first BCSN top 5 rankings will come out for the major and or for the Division I and non-Division I levels. So that's what's upcoming. So just to let
that
people
makes plenty of sense though, man. I mean, you know, I told somebody on Twitter a while back, you know, all of us are just guessing up until we get into conference play. We could predict, but you know, the way the course of football is taking place and taking shape, we don't know who's on a roster until the season starts. So to just say, you know, this is top so-and-so, you just never know.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I will admit, even as a voter in some various polls, I'm week to week at this, and I'm constantly see what I like to do, Jamie. I like to try to have a 3-game sample size. So whatever I'm ranking you, however I'm ranking you, I'm looking at what you did over the last 3 weeks. Well, obviously, we are only now into week 3, so we're finally at a point where maybe we know who you are, but still, even that changes because this is still just the first quarter or first third of the season. And you know, like a good cake, the cake is not ready in the first 10 minutes of baking. You know, you usually got to let it marinate, so or let it do what it's supposed to do right in the oven. So there you go.
Absolutely, like pasta. You know, spaghetti's not good until like the second or third day.
Exactly. So let me start by saying hello to a few people who were nice enough and on point to jump in early. And I just encourage everybody to go ahead and hit the thumbs up and the like button, however and wherever you are watching us. Shout out to my brother Kid checking in. Exactly. Fam, you on the bye week. So Ken, I hope you got some chores done around the house with family because, you know, it's there's no rest for the weary going forward. Coach Farasi coming in. Good to see you, Coach. Thank you for checking in. You know, look at Coach already. See, already. I didn't have look. See, that's what happens when someone else does the graphics. I don't have photos of you, Coach. So, you know, I go with what I had. You know, so that's what happens. You know, changing management a little bit and some things just happen. You know, so but Walter Harley checking in. Livingston College. How about the Blue Bears, Drew? The CIAA. Ooh.
Let's talk. Hey, let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it. I'm a witness.
Look, we're going to talk about it because I think the CIAA is making a strong play when it comes that time for Division II playoffs. It'll be interesting to see how the non-conference domination of the CIAA plays into the minds of the regional rankings. Be something to pay attention to in late October, November. Jeff Roberts checking in. Jeff, are you excited for this weekend? Are you nervous or are you excited? Which one?
He's not. Look, he's naggy, so he's excited about this week, man. Listen, we're gonna be just fine. We are gonna be just fine.
All right. Of course, we're talking about the annual Aggie Eagle Classic. Is it? Well, you know, it is Aggie Eagle. It's never Eagle Aggie, is it? I mean, is it always alphabetical, or is it you guys run the roost on that series? Is that how it runs, Jamie?
It's primarily alphabetical, but they know better too. So it'll always be Aggie Eagle.
There you go. Jimmy Mack, thanks for checking in. Good to see you. Thank you for being a JBN subscriber. Appreciate you. A member, JBN member, excuse me. Tamara T checking in. Good to see you, Tamara. Thank you for being the JBN subscriber as well. Yes, for right now, Israel, you can definitely say JSU over SU. Definitely. Yeah, y'all got it. Y'all got it this year. And I think the boom over the box, if I recall what I saw at halftime, Jamie, I don't know, did you? Well, obviously you were working, so you can get a chance to see it. But from what I saw, I'm gonna have to give the Sonic Boom the edge over the human jukebox at halftime. So anybody who watched, I'd love to hear your perspectives on that as well. Put that in the chat room if you would. Let's see. EA checking in. Good to see you, EA. Yeah, Jackson State does look for real. Definitely a contender. Definitely a contender. Good to see you, Edwin Moore. Thanks for checking in. I guess that's a good thing compared to some of my issues from Wednesday, Edwin. Thank God the internet's working today. So good thing. M Ford 74 checking in. All SWAC all the time. Well, you know, it is that time of year. We'll see what the SWAC's got in store. Drew checking in, wishing us well. Good to see you, Drew. Look forward to having you stop in a little bit later when we get into that discussion, talking about a game that ended in a tie, man. Anyway, it had to happen, so we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it coming up. All right. So again, appreciate everybody for the likes and the thumbs up and everything else. And make sure you're following the Black College Sports Network on Facebook and Instagram, X. Say hello to everybody watching us on Instagram Live, and as well as watching on X. We appreciate you watching the show. Go ahead and feel free to share it if you would. We appreciate you. Okay, Jamie, let's get into talking now. One of the games, now this wasn't in our top 5, but you were working. So that we're going to start there because you were working at in Columbia, South Carolina. Lane paying a visit, winless Lane, I think, just got mollywopped by Jackson State the week before. Traveling on the road to take on Benedict. I think this was the first home game under Coach Dickerson, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
Yeah, first home game, new regime there at Benedict. Yeah, man, tough start for Benedict, and I tweeted. So I sometimes when I have free time, I callously tweet things, Jamie. So seeing the final score, I kind of tweeted, "This is not Barry's Benedict." Final score, Lane 32, Benedict 27. Jamie, what did you see? What did we have that went on over in Benedict?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I left highly impressed with Lane, just because of the talent they have offensively and especially in their back four as well on defense. But Benedict showed me some things. They showed me that the cupboard is not bare, and they also showed me that Coach Dickerson and that crew is obviously recruiting. They have 42 freshmen. My broadcast partner and me, we counted it, on the roster. They have 42 freshmen. Coach Dickerson also got hired very late, so the fact that they are even competitive or have a remnants of what occurred last year is remarkable. They were in that game. In fact, going into halftime, they were leading that ball game, and it looked like before their starting quarterback got hurt, who is a freshman, Jackson Jensen, did well. They were able to throw the ball around. He brought that West Florida offense to Benedict, and it looked really good until the quarterback got hurt. And even the backup quarterback, Trey Simmons, was able to kind of set the tone with him being able to run. There were some big plays on the outside. They were doing well. But Lane absolutely took the air out of the ball in the second half. What they decided to do was take Colin Dew, which is, all preseason, all SIAC back, Ike Brown, which is Coach Brown's son. They took that backfield and absolutely decided we're going to run the football until you stop it, and Benedict never could. And what's amazing is, as great as that defense has been in the last couple of years, front seven could not stop the running game of Lane at all, and that just set up the play action pass. And then there was some big plays on the outside with Anthony Evelyn. And you'll see his stats a little later, but yeah. So Lane, Division II Lane, by the way. So when it comes to just what they've been able to do and what they did against Benedict, it was nothing short of really just old school smash mouth football. And so that's what they did to Benedict. I want to say they possessed the ball 20 of the 30 minutes of the second half. So that just tells you what they were able to do. They didn't give many opportunities at all for Benedict to possess the ball. So on offense. So it was amazing. It was amazing to see, and they scored when they could and just played keep away for the most part, but a formidable running game by Lane.
We talked about, or we noted at the beginning of the season, how Morgan State ran the ball, I think it was 55 times against Hampton in the opening game of the season. Well, this, I think, is the second largest amount of attempts by a team. Lane ran the ball 50 times for a net of 242 yards, 4.8 average per rush, 3 touchdowns. And of course, as you mentioned, Ike Brown was 23 carries, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a 6.8 average. And then Kylan, is it Dew?
Dew. It is Kylan
Dew. Yeah, 14 carries, 93 yards net, and a touchdown. That's a 6.6 average. So an average of 6.7 per carry from your lead 2 backs that carried the ball 37 times. 37 of the 50 times was by those 2 guys. And like you said, that's impressive. Second largest run volume by anybody. And, I think in terms of first downs, they had 23 first downs in the contest. And still, Jamie managed to pass 20 times. I mean, they were 15 to 20 passing the ball. So, I mean, they got all 70 plays, 440 total yards in the contest. So, I mean, Lane, really kind of took the lumps from Jackson State, and they could have easily walked into that game against Benedict kind of like, we just got our tails whooped. We're feeling some kind of way. But they turned around and took it out on Benedict.
When I interviewed Coach Brown, and what he said about that Jackson State game was, he said, we took our lumps. He said, they have some good athletes on their side. They've recruited well and they've done their thing. He said, but what didn't happen was we didn't come out hurt, like a lot of teams oftentimes do when you have those types of numbers. So he said they went into that game fresh. In fact, started rotating people in, and you said Jackson State really continued to play their starters throughout the rest of the game, which was interesting, so to speak, in what he said. But, so he said they came out pretty fresh. So he said, they changed course and what they wanted to do, and they wanted to remain balanced. But I'm telling you, when they went in halftime, it had to be a speech for the ages. Because what they decided to do was, okay, we're going to make you love us running the football. And that's exactly what happened. The quarterback Gatson was able to throw some passes too. And when you're running the football at that kind of clip, it makes it easier to go over the top of a defense. So that's what you kind of saw out of that game. And again, Benedict, they made some big plays, especially from the quarterback position, because Trey Simmons was more of a runner than passer, but really couldn't get in the end zone until the end of the game. Kind of made it close to the end, but Lane was able to hold on and pull out the ball
game. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that it is, even though it's week 3, well, it's week 3, but in the Division II world, it's week 2. But then you had some people that played some week 0. So it really is just the second game for Lane, right? Lane did that. Jackson State was how they opened the season, and they do some smart scheduling because now they're into the conference part of the schedule, and then their last game of the year is a non-conference game. So kind of some unique scheduling for Lane, the kind of the way the schedule is set up for them. So keep an eye out on Lane. I think we could have easily, and I'm right there with a lot of people. I probably wrote them off, or maybe just thinking, oh man, you just got whooped by Jackson State. But yeah, like your first game of the year, and you're playing with a lot of freshmen, and now and fortunately you were healthy. So this will be interesting to kind of keep an eye on Lane going forward. Let's go to another dominating performance on the ground. And that's over in Norfolk, the Battle of the Bay. This is one of our top 5 games. Top 5 games we thought it would be, it turned out to be, but not for the reason why it turned out to be a top 5 game. And that's because the Hampton Pirates, ladies and gentlemen, for the second straight week, are looking like the team that I'm just speaking for me, that I thought they might be. They put a beat down on Norfolk State, 37-7, as now for the 5th consecutive year, the road team in this series, in the Battle of the Bay, for the 5th consecutive year, the road team has won this contest, right? And so I was jumping. I was trying to get all over Hampton and being a 2-point dog, 2.5-point underdog. I was like, oh my God, please. I mean, where can I find that at? But yes, Tymeer Robinson and quarterback Chris Zellis each ran for 2 touchdowns, as Hampton's defense allowed just 106 total yards to Norfolk State. This is the Norfolk State team that we've been watching for the last 3 weeks. Held to 106 yards, and I believe it wasn't until maybe late in the contest when they got that over 100. Chris Zellis completed 20 of 25 for 185 yards, added 60 yards rushing on 7 carries. Hampton improved to 2-1 after knocking off Virginia Union a week before, and now they're 2-1, getting ready to head into that battle against the other school that starts with an H that they have owned for the last 2 decades, and that's Howard University. Hampton had 466 yards of total offense. They had the time of possession, 36 minutes and 41 seconds to Norfolk State's 23-19. First downs, Hampton 27-9 on first downs. Hampton jumped on Norfolk State with 30 consecutive points before Norfolk State managed to limp into the end zone for a score. Jamie, we saw the rankings for Hampton in Dr. Cabill's poll this morning. Are you buying Hampton this early in the year? And B, what are you? I mean, I hate to do classic sports talk radio, but okay, is Dawson Odoms now on the hot seat, going 1-3 and only beating one of the 2 rivals?
I'll answer your second question first. Norfolk is not going to. The seat may be hot, but he's not going anywhere. I think they are pleased with who he is. They had some troubles when he first came in, and that was outside of football. But initially, you could see the potential in what you thought this team was going to be. I'm not sure what's been going on in the last 2 weeks with that offense, but I think Otto Kuhn's not being there really did just throw off what that squad was going to do because they are very one-dimensional. It's built in the image of Dawson Odoms, being that they want to play defense and want to run the football. But when you're that one-dimensional, you really can't do anything when a team is able to stack the box. And what I'll tell you is, just like any other team that's gone to a certain conference, I think you stack and build your team based on who you're playing conference-wise. And I think Hampton is starting to build in the CAA image, meaning they're getting bigger. They're recruiting towards their conference now, and you're seeing some of that. It's very easy to say, yeah, you're getting beaten, boat raced. And trust me, I understand people talking about your squad all the time, moving into a different conference and saying you need to go back or whatever. But at the same time, people that's actually, emphasizing trying to compete within the conference, you're building that team a certain way. And I think that's what you're seeing against Norfolk State in particular, even though the road team has won, in the last 5 years. So it's not that far off. It's just really amazing what you're seeing out of Norfolk State at this point, as well as they played FAMU and had an opportunity to win that game. I'm not sure what's going on with them now, besides the quarterback position being so one-dimensional that they're really just playing Norfolk a certain way. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know where they go from here, but the seat is hot, but he's not going anywhere. That contract, I think, is ironclad. And I don't think they're going to pony up the money to buy him out. I'm just not sure that'll happen.
I agree with you about Hampton building. And last year I was, after Hampton had a great start to the non-conference, I think they were 3-0, 4-0 or something to that effect. And I mean, I'll admit, I kind of had them highly ranked in a few polls that I voted in. By the time they went into conference play, and then they started losing, and then I think Chris Zealous got hurt. I hope Zealous can stay healthy. I hope this team, because I don't know, I've got a strong sense that Hampton can be a contender. Like, they can be a middle of the road team in the CAA. And if they take care of the non-conference, and I think if they take care of Howard coming up, and then if they move into that point of winning a few of these conference games, and that's the thing what we're looking for, right? We're looking to see, can you be better than 3 and 5? I had to play 8 games, better than 3 and 5. Can you be better than 4 and 4? Can you win 5 or 6? Because it really, you don't play everybody in the conference. That's the one thing about the CAA. You don't play everybody. So I haven't broken down the conference schedule to see, who you're playing, but that's what I'm looking for. And I think it'll be interesting if they can win 5, 6 games. They could very well find themselves in the FCS playoffs because of the strength of that conference. You got to beat somebody. You got to beat somebody in the upper level. But if they can find themselves in the top 6, the way the FCS kind of stacks the playoff, and the way they show love to the CIAA and then the Missouri Valley and maybe one other conference, that might be good enough to get you into the playoffs, even as the last seed or 2 in. Just something to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say about the I guess the facade of the CAA. Is that they are what they used to be when a James Madison and the Old Dominions and the and the people of that ilk being within the conference. It's not the same one, but they still do get playoff squads in there, and teams that beat teams in the CAA get playoff nods as well. Shout out to the North Carolina Central last year. I think because of their non-conference schedule, they were in the playoffs last year, not being able to get consolation prize from not being able to get in the Celebration Bowl. But yeah, I think Hampton is a really good put together team. I want you to just look at the stats. You're talking about 20 of 25 for 185 yards. So they are running the football downhill. Zealous still had another 60 yards rushing. So you're talking about a team that's built in the mode of we're not going to throw the ball all around the yard. It's tough, physical, running the football play. So and great point there. 12th out of 16 teams. So
that says something. I feel like that says something about the CAA.
Yeah.
Or either people are sleeping on Hampton. One of the two. One of the two is happening, right?
For my sake, of course, as a Aggie alum and fan, I hope they aren't as good as they advertise. But if I step outside of that, they're a good ball club. I think they're better than advertising. Going into this game with Howard will be very interesting. I think for what everything that transpired last year as far as the MEAC beating the CAA in a lot of games. That's not happening this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that looks with Howard and Hampton.
Yeah, and just to answer Edwin's more, when he says do we want middle of the road Colonial to dominate? Look, if that happens, that says something about the MEAC and maybe the SWAC. I don't know how the CIAA and SWAC are doing. Maybe that's something to do for next week's show to kind of look at those. We'll be able to do that obviously after the Howard Hampton game. But yeah, I guess we'll have to start looking at those numbers and saying what's everybody
also after the Aggie Eagle. I guess it would be the same contention. I mean, the same, thought process. So yeah.
Both are happening next week. Okay, let's take our first break. Coming up after the break, we got Coach Farasi Norman. We're gonna have I'm gonna call it a guest appearance by AD Drew, and we'll talk some more about the top 5 games from the weekend, including one of the best games of the season that only went 2 quarters. Maybe 2 quarters and 2 possessions. So it's like 2 1/4 of a quarter. But it's still one of the best games that we've seen this season. And it's one of our top 5 games. So we'll talk to Coach Farasi, get Drew in on this one as well, and more. Make sure to hang in there with us. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show. All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. We got a full house backfield now. Feels like the original family is back together here. Brian Fulford, AD Drew, Jamie Walker, Coach Farasi Norman. Good to see you, Drew. Good to see you, Coach Farasi. How you doing?
Aloha, aloha. Hey, man, I'm doing good. Drew, what's up, buddy? I know I see you this week, man.
It was a last-minute thing. Brian and I were having a discussion when I was driving home today, and I'll point back and say, man, it sounds like I need to come on the show and bring my points across and everything. And shout to my brother Jamie Walker. Shout out. Appreciate your brother sitting in, filling in the seat for me, man. While I go through this, go through these adjustments in life, as they say. So, but as long as my name is still on the logo, in the commercials and everything else. Oh,
Jamie, how you doing, brother?
Hold on, time out. That's why he asked me for those pictures earlier today. Bryan doing some sneaky stuff behind the scenes.
I'm trying to slow. I'm not going to just instantly drop you from all the imaging, Drew. I'm going to slowly roll it out. Slowly, just slowly. Coach Farasi's already complaining. He's already complaining about not having a graphic. Already.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was up there looking good, up there chilling. Everybody like, hey, Coach, I see you up there. You're an analyst. I'm like, yeah, I stepped up. Last year, I was just a guest. Now I'm an analyst. That's because my man's over there. But when my man, he take a hiatus, my other guy, he's like, hey, move him out the way. And, Jamie, what's up, brother? How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good, Coach Norman, man. Listen. I'm simply just standing in. Look, man, ain't nobody come to see me, Otis. Ain't nobody come to see me. That's why AD dropped in. Nobody come to see me.
Hey, Coach Farasi.
What's up, brother?
It's kind of like when the head coach go to another job. The offensive coordinator, first thing he got to do, I still got a job. Am I still an OC? Am I still a linebacker coach?
Yeah, you standing there like, just like, yeah. So it's all good. I'm glad that everybody's back in the house. Have a good, blessed Sunday and everything like that. Let's talk some football.
All right. So we got to talk about this game that took place down in South Florida in Miami Gardens. The Florida Showdown, I guess, as it was called. I don't know who came up with that. Maybe it was the Georgia-Florida Showdown. Maybe that's how it was called. And maybe I just didn't see the Georgia part. But Clark Atlanta traveling to Florida Memorial. We noted the second week in a row that Florida Memorial is actually hosting a Division II opponent, an SIAC opponent. And so Clark, of course, one of the hottest teams right now in the SIAC and HBCU football, comes in unbeaten 2-0. Florida Memorial 1-0. So obviously this is one of our top 5 games coming in. And this game lived up to the hype. Although if you watch the first quarter, it was a bit slow. And, obviously the first quarter, really only had one score, and that was Clark jumping out to a 7-0 lead on their first drive of the ball game. But it kind of went a little slow there. Clark had a field goal attempt that they missed. Florida Memorial started the second quarter turnover on downs. Clark punted. And then with about 11:20 to start the drive for Florida Memorial, that's when the proverbial lights, that's when the lights started getting lit up and the scoreboard numbers started floating. Because from that point in the second quarter where Florida Memorial actually scored a touchdown on an 8-play, 74-yard drive to tie the ball game with 8:47. From that point forward, for the next, we'll call that possession, we'll say 6 of the next 7 possessions, including 6 consecutive possessions, we had touchdowns. And so right after Florida Memorial scored, David Wright completes a pass over the middle, 36 yards. The DB from Florida Memorial strips Clark Atlanta, wide receiver, fumble, turnover, Florida Memorial ball. Florida Memorial then goes 5 plays, 65 yards, scores a touchdown in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. And Coach, as you watch this, and I think this is about where you picked it up in the second quarter, from this point, there was no scoring drive that went longer than 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Heck, that drive that Florida Memorial scored prior to the turnover was 2 minutes and 53 seconds. So actually, I'd say that 7 of the next 8 possessions, you had touchdowns all under 3 minutes. Coach, as you're watching this, what's going through your mind as you're watching this offensive explosion take off?
I caught it right when Florida Memorial had threw a deep 73-yard bomb, okay? Guy caught it at the 1. The very next play, the quarterback took it around the edge. So that made it 14. That made it 21-14. Then the very next ensuing kickoff, Clark Atlanta took it all the way back. I mean, that brother had some speed. Remember last one I was talking about Savannah State, the one guy who blocked the kick, another guy picked it up, but he let the kicker hawk him down. This brother had some wheels because, I mean, and you could tell they worked their special teams because they had the blocks. That thing parted like the Red Sea, and he was moving to the house. Touchdown. Then I'd say, what, a series of 2 later, boom, in the air. Now, Florida Memorial got his receiver. I think he's number 8. Studson. So I just kept saying Stud because
Studstill. David Studstill of Florida Memorial. Yes.
Yes, sir. He had 100 yards. He had 100-some yards in the first half. I mean, that brother can play. That brother can play. I was impressed with the offensive line. They did a great job of blocking. I didn't really see too much running. Everything was in the air. David Wright, I had to jump on his bandwagon. That brother, he can throw the ball well. So Florida Memorial scores, and then it's like minute 37 to go. And I remember the commentator said, "Do you think Clark Atlanta just run the ball and run the clock out?" Two plays later, in the back of the end zone, David Wright hits the guy, 28-28. Then we go to halftime. So I'm like, okay, halftime. Then bands did a nice job. I wasn't really like looking at the band, but bands did a nice job. Then we come back, and it's a rain delay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the heck? So then I said, okay, 10, 12. And then I hear the commentator saying, all people leave the stadium, rain delay. So I'm saying, oh, what's this going to be about? 15, 20 minutes, 25. Then I hit up my man, Drew, like, hey. Drew, like, oh, they're back on the field now. So I turn my phone back on because I'm working off a phone. Turn my phone back on, and it's almost like they're on the field. Then all of a sudden, they're just walking off the field. I'm like, are we not going to play? Then the commentator says, looks like we're just going to go ahead and end the game at 28, lightning, bad weather. And I'm like, oh, man. But I tell you what, that was a heck of a second quarter. Both quarterbacks threw the ball well. Both offensive lines blocked well. Once again, I didn't see much running. David Wright does what he does. I mean, the brother can throw the ball. He's proven that. I think he's got the best arm. Not the best quarterback, but he's got the best arm in black college football that I've seen last year dating to right now. Impressed with Florida Memorial. Now, let me ask you. You said this is their second week playing a D2. What is Florida Memorial? Are they not D2? Are they NAIA? Oh, they're NAIA. Okay. I thought they were D2. My fault. So they're NAIA. They look good. Well, the offensive line did a good job of blocking for that quarterback. And that one kid, Stetfield, whatever his name is, he's real. He's real. We got to watch him throughout the season because that brother's gonna make some noise. He's real. I was impressed with that. With basically the second quarter and then the rain delay. Then I moved over, but I'll let you guys keep catch on up with me.
So 49 points. 49 points is what was scored in that second quarter. 49 points.
There's some teams who have a score of 49 points all season still.
Some games haven't scored 49 points.
And let me interject real quick. I knew I heard that name before. He played for Jackson State.
Who, Studstill?
Studstill.
Wide receiver, okay.
I think so.
Oh, that's why he down there marching marching folks. I didn't catch that one. That's why he down there marching them because he came from that level down. Okay. No matter how you look at it, the brother's real. I mean, they say he had what do you have? You got the stats. I think he had like 5-6 catches for 100 and something.
6 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. That's all just first half stats.
First half.
Wow. And look, David Wright gets all the attention, but give credit to Saquon Smith, quarterback for Florida Memorial. He was 19 of 21, 284 yards, and of course, he had 1 touchdown. He was going toe-to-toe. I mean, their offense, their receiving core, I mean, with Studstill and him, they were matching Florida, Clark Atlanta. I mean, we're well aware of what David Wright and Clark can do. And I will say before I throw it over to you, Jamie, the play that you mentioned, Coach, where Wright is on the right hash mark and he throws it to the left pylon that might have been the prettiest throw I've seen all. And I'm like, wait a minute, he just threw that from the right hash to the far corner of the end zone and a catch. I mean, he continues to impress week after week. Go ahead.
Hey, and the brother's only 5'9", 185.
Hey, I can't believe those numbers. I really can't. But yeah, Jamie. So I mean, you come out of that game and just I don't know what that game was pacing at, but the weather caused the halftime. Actually, after the bands performed, you had a weather delay, lightning. Then they tried to come back out on the field once the weather delay had passed. And as they got 2 drives, I mean, Clark had a drive, Florida Memorial had a drive. And then as Clark was coming out for their second drive of the half, you could see And matter of fact, you could hear the rain coming down very, very hard, or harder than the start of the third quarter. And that's when I guess I kind of did a search and looked on the weather report, and you could see that, okay, there's some storms in the area. More storms are coming. It was supposed to clear up by about 5 o'clock, but then again, there were some other factors that went into why Clark had to leave. Jamie, I get your thoughts in here, and then I'm gonna come over to Drew and we talk about those logistics in a second.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about, and I tweeted to Coach Keaton, why do we have to do this? Because this is his second cancellation of a football game due to weather. Remember when he was at Allen, went up to, what was it, Livingstone, if I'm not mistaken, and they canceled the end of that game as well. They just called it a complete cancellation.
Right, I remember that. Because
of weather. It was either Livingstone or Johnson C. Smith. But yeah, he was like, man, I don't know. And that's exactly what he tweeted back. But I'm surprised by the way that Florida Memorial was able to score, to be perfectly honest with you, because going into this game, I thought they were strictly a running, downhill running team. So I was surprised by the back and forth, especially with them beating Edward Waters last weekend, basically by running the football. So I thought that passing game would be of Clark and Landers would be too much to overcome. But give them credit, man. And hey, I'm surprised nobody's trying to pull them on up to the SIAC. I'm surprised. Drew may know more about that than me.
Jamie just well, anyway.
Excuse me, I got to get the dirt off for the tire box. Jamie throwing me under the bus.
Look, I will say, okay, so here's what we did find out. What we did find out was logistics went into why this game had to be called. Clark was on buses. So Clark did not take a plane down to Miami Gardens. So from Atlanta to Miami Gardens is roughly a
12.
I was going to say 14 hours, but probably a 12 hour.
12 to 14 on the bus.
12 to 14 on a bus. And so, Drew, talk a little bit about the logistics, because you've been through this nightmare, having worked in that very recently. Talk a little bit about
in that same area.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the logistics of what went into the decision to cancel that game when they did.
First of all, I just want to say I'm glad everybody read the show notes and decided to wear their black today. There's a joke. There's a joke in there, y'all. No, right. But and Coach Norman can help me out with this. When you get into this situation, there's a lot, and when I say a lot that has to go into making this decision, whether to continue the game, whether to get on the bus, whether to reschedule the game. First thing, is this a conference game or not a conference game? Obviously, for this one, we know that this is not a conference game. I don't know if you guys remember, it was about 3 years ago. I think it was Miles Benedict. A game that finished up like 1:30 Central Time.
Yes.
2:30, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. It was at Miles.
Yes.
It was at Miles. That was a conference game. Mm-hmm. That was a time when you had to wait it out come hell or high water, because as you look down the schedule, there was no other time to get that game in. SIAC in a traditional season has no bye weeks, so you have to play on that Saturday, or on that Saturday. Obviously, well, let's just stop right there. And Coach Norm can help me out with this. I'm pretty sure you've been through weather delays like this. The fact of having to get you guys warmed up into your normal game routine. You come in, you cool down. It's halftime. You gotta warm up again. You've been sitting an extended amount of time. Then you get a second rain delay, so you've got to cool down again. And when that adrenaline stops flowing, you realize some of those nicks and dings that you have that you don't feel during the game time. But now you've got to get loose again to try to get back out here on the field a second time. Coach Norm, you can help me out. From a coach's point of view, this has to be a challenge. In addition to that, you know, you've had your pregame meal, so you know how long that pregame meal is supposed to last these kids. That energy that you got from that pregame meal is starting to wear off. You got nutrition that you give them at halftime, but you've gone through that nutrition already at halftime. So you don't have that extra nutrition to deal with these delays, and you may even be short on hydration. Yeah, you got water, but you may be short on Powerade, muscle milk, or whatever that you're drinking to keep your electrolytes up and keep your keep yourself from cramping and everything else like that. So before I get into some of the other stuff, Coach Norman, talk about that portion of it, just the coach's portion, the X's, the O's, and just the factor of dealing with these 18 to 22-year-old bodies.
The first thing you do is you go see the ref and you say, what's going on? How much time do we have? Is there a weatherman around? What am I looking at? Because I got to go in there and see what I can do for my boys. And then you get an answer, Coach. Yeah, we're looking at 30 minutes. So you go in there and you tell the fellas, okay, just everybody sit, get off your feet. Get off your feet. Sit down, get a corner, get off your butt. Get off your cleats, everything like that. Water up. I'm not letting anybody drink any muscle milk during a game. Water, Gatorade, Powerade, something like that. But you want them to get off your feet. And then you as the coach, you keep looking outside. You looking upstairs. You saying a prayer like, come on, Lord, let us finish this up. And everything's sort of like that. Then you go back and you find the referee again. You say, how much time we got, Coach? Coach, we just told you 20 minutes. You say, hey, buddy, I'm just trying to find out because I got to get my boys ready. And then
you get another lightning strike.
Then you get
another 30 minutes.
Yeah. So then it's like another 30 minutes. So then you just look at him and you say, hey, just be real with me. Are we going to finish this game? If not, let me be fair to my guys. And he's like, well, then they want to, oh, well, okay, Coach, well, let us see what we can do. And then you go back down and, Coach, your boys getting antsy now because they're sitting on their butts like, Coach, what's going on? So you're like, fellas, just relax. Just relax. Turn your music on. Coordinators, take the defense, take the offense, drop some plays or something like that. Let me find out what's going on. So you try to kill time and be the longest 2 minutes before you walk back up them stairs. And your referee's looking at you and you're like, can you talk to me? And then they're starting to get frustrated. You're like, you guys get mad at me, but I didn't do this. I got 100 guys downstairs. I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to do. And they're like, well, Coach, we're thinking about this throwing a game. And so then when they say that, you say, well, are we up? Yes. Like you say, is this a conference game? Does this matter? Can we redo this? Does it go as a time? There's a whole bunch of variables going on that you're just going on real quickly. And then you say, you try to go call your AD and like, hey, okay, you're not here. But if they call this game, is this a tie? Do we reschedule this? How's this work for us? Because we're 2-1 in conference now. We needed this game and we're up 27-24. Then he's saying, oh, well, Coach, he's giving you some stuff you ain't really trying to hear. You're like, okay, talk to you when I get back. Click. You go look at the ref like, ref, what are you going to do? We're going to do. And he's like, looks like we're going to call the game, Coach. And you get upset, but who you mad at? Mother Nature? It happens. Mm-hmm. So then you go on downstairs, you tell the fellas, hey, unwrap your shoes, take your stuff off his game. We won. We get the W, but we got to see how it's really going to hurt us down the road. But right now, feel good about what you've done and take it from there.
And the only thing worse than that, Coach, is when you don't get to that halftime point and the game gets suspended and all those stats do not count. And I think that may have been the game was that the game you were talking about, Jamie, where the stats didn't count?
Yeah.
Because they did not get to halftime because of the weather. And that could affect somebody being first team, second team, player of the year. All that stuff goes into effect. Would you say the kid had at halftime, Brian? Six catches for 130 something and a touchdown?
Yeah. So Stud Still, the wide receiver from Florida Memorial, 6 catches, 132 and a touchdown. The quarterback, Saquon Smith, 19 of 21, 284 and a touchdown. And David Wright, he was 15 of 27, 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
Just think if that game was called before the time and all that is wiped out.
Man.
Those are good numbers for a half. Those are good numbers.
Those are good numbers for a game. In a four
game.
Yeah, for a quarter. Exactly. Come on, let's be real. For a quarter.
Yeah. So, all right, now let's flip this to the administrative side. And I've been that person on the road where first thing you have to do is you got to get in touch with your athletic director and have that conversation with him. What's going on from our point of view, what can we do? What can't we do? Clark was on buses. Those bus drivers, and a lot of people don't understand this, even though they are sitting at that stadium, their hours are accumulating. With the commercial driver's license that you need to drive those charters, there are only so many hours that you can work in a day. Sitting
Great
there
point.
at the stadium counts as working. You can only drive so many hours in a day, but you can also only work so many hours total in a day. That's why if you've ever rode those charters, that's why they have to stop every 4 to 5 hours, because they have by law they have to take a break. So for that distance, there are probably 2 drivers per bus, or may not be 2 drivers per bus. Usually, what they do is they have a driver that's somewhere in the middle. Like, so if they're coming from Miami, they may have another driver waiting on them in, say, Jacksonville or in Valdosta, Georgia, that's going to drive the rest of the trip. So those are factors, but those drivers sitting and waiting on those, they have a certain schedule on when they begin their hours, when they lose their hours. So you must have not seen these budgets, Edward Moore. There is no school that I have dealt with where the bus driver gets to stay at the hotel during the day game. We're not talking a game that's a 6 o'clock start. Once again, EA, this is common, especially at the Division II level and the NAIA level, that you take these bus trips unless it's a classic. 16-hour trips, 12-hour trips, 10-hour trips, very common.
24-hour trips, I've done them back and forth. Wow.
And, you talking $8,000 to $10,000 per bus. Yeah, $30,000. Because even if you fly, when you get there, you still have to have ground transportation, which means you still have to lease buses. So there's a lot that goes into it. Getting back to some of these logistics. All right, first of all, what the bus driver is probably the first person you need to be talking to. What is the drop dead time that we could get on this road and still get home where you still have enough hours to drive? Number one. Bus drivers, like, if we don't leave in the next hour, we gonna have to stay over. Okay, now there's a decision on whether you stay over, whether you playing the game or not. There comes a certain drop dead point in time where you have to decide whether you're going to stay over to the next morning. Where we staying at, fellas? Because we checked out those rooms at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, because we thought we was going to be playing the ball game. So first of all, if you're lucky, the hotel where you was at has enough rooms, or can put you in touch with a partner hotel that could get you enough room. We're not talking 10 rooms, y'all. We are not talking like 10 rooms. We're talking 30, 40, 50 rooms that you need in order to travel to support your team and to support your staff. A lot of hotels don't have that kind of inventory on a Saturday because most Saturdays are already booked up. Then, once we find a hotel, I'm gonna let you come in just a second, Coach. Once we find a hotel, do we have a team credit card? Who has money on their credit card enough to cover 50 hotel rooms on their credit card? Oh, dang. Now we got to call back to somebody at the university. You ever try calling somebody in finance on a Saturday afternoon?
Good luck.
Even if you have their cell phone. Because even if you get them, most of those systems are designed, they have to go to the university to make those kind of changes. They can't just log in from their personal computer at the house and make those kind of changes. And that's designed like that on purpose to prevent fraud. So there's a lot. You may even have to get in touch with the president to get that authorization. So there is plenty of things that you have to consider logistically, which goes into why Clark knew what that drop dead time was. and they made a decision after that second delay. We cannot afford to sit here for an hour, possibly 2 hours, to try to get in a game that has no bearing on the SIAC standings.
There you go. That last part right there. That last part right there. Well said. What do you want to add on that, Coach?
One more. Now you got to add additional meals into that also. Because you had your meals planned to go back. If you stay over, that's another 2 meals you may have to do. Hopefully the hotel has breakfast and you may only have to do lunch. But depending on how long that ride is, you may have to do lunch and dinner. So, like I said, once again, there's a lot that goes into it.
Go ahead, Coach. What do you got? Final thought here on this game, or just the logistics there?
I've been in situations where, one, they have another driver coming. He's 5 hours away. 2, just let their butt stay on the bus. See you guys in the morning. Click. Yeah. I've been in both those situations.
Okay. Well, like I said, the biggest thing on the contest is a great game for a half, delayed, postponed, then called. I don't know. Right now, it sits as a tie. So, I mean, Clark would be, I guess. Well, and here's the thing. It doesn't even matter for neither team. It doesn't necessarily matter in the consideration for their playoffs. Correct, Drew? I mean, D2, it doesn't matter. For NAIA, it
doesn't. But it sure throws off the algorithm for the BCSN top 5 ranking. Because that algorithm did not in any way, shape, or form ever consider a tie when it was created. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects our ranking, which will come out next week.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't know how we do that. I don't know. Can we? I'll let the computers figure that out.
Basically, you're gonna have to go in manually and split everything in half. If you get X amount of points for a win, you just divide it by 2 because nobody won, nobody lost.
Yeah, jeez.
But it's gonna take a manual adjustment.
Thank God for computers. Let's go to one other top 5 game. Coach, you also watched this matchup that took place in Jackson, Mississippi. Southern traveling to Jackson State. We had high expectations for this one. I think this was definitely a lot of people's game of the week. Jackson State, though, proved to be a little too much from the jump as they got out to a 23-0 lead all the way into the second quarter before Southern managed to kick a field goal as time expired in the first half. Halftime score was 23-3. Jackson State would end up racking up 201 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns from 3 different backs in the contest. Final score, Jackson State 33, Southern 15. Jackson State covered the 10 points. Wasn't as close as the score indicates, although, hey, what's that? 18 points? Probably wasn't even that close. Noah Biden was probably the highlight for Southern, as he was 17 of 29, 352 yards passing. Let's see. How many touchdowns did he throw? Hold on. He had a touchdown, 2 interceptions, though.
Yeah.
Both those interceptions were in the second half. Southern dropped to 1-2. And the attendance of note, 32,027 people were in attendance there for this contest. Coach, what did you see? What were your thoughts there as you watched Southern traveling to Jackson State?
One, I thought the game was going to be a little closer. I thought it was going to be 24-17 in favor of Jackson State. I figured they could come out and get them. I noticed TC looked a lot more calmer, cooler on the sidelines. He called the offense a lot better. It ran a lot more smoother. They ran the ball very well. Shout out to the offensive line. They did a great job for those guys. That quarterback, Jacobian, he threw the ball well. I thought offensively they had a great day. Defensively, they shut Southern down. I know Southern likes to run those crossing routes. They knocked the ball down. They intercepted. They disturbed the quarterback. There was no run game whatsoever. I was didn't really know what to say about Southern. I thought it was going to be better than that, but Jackson State looked like they had something to prove. I think from what I heard, there was like 4 games in a row that they've won, 2 with Dion and now 2 with TC Taylor. I was just impressed with Jackson State because they look like the team that TC was saying. I got 85% of my team coming back. My coaches are coming back. So once again, I was impressed with him, though. The way he just called plays, it just ran smooth. I was like, okay, if they play the rest of the season like that, I think Jackson State's going to have something to say about who wins the SWAC because they looked good last night. Offense, defense, and special teams. I saw no flaws. Southern, the quarterback that's homegrown, I can't say his name, little thin brother, dark skin. They took him out and then they put in number 15. He came in real quick. He threw 2 deep bombs. I was like, okay, this kid's got an arm, and they had somebody go get it. So I'm thinking they're gonna just sit in shotgun and let's go deep. They try to go to a somewhat of a run game. The offensive line wasn't blocking, which is a shame because they're big enough to block, but they just wasn't getting it done. And then, like I say, he threw 2 picks. Crucial was like one pick. He was looking like right at the guy, like, "Hey, buddy, you're wearing white and yellow. They're wearing blue." He threw it right to the guy. I'm like, "Come on, man." Not gonna say I'm disappointed in Southern because it's still early, but I was very impressed with Jackson State. I really was. I was like, that's the team I expected to see. That's the team I expected to see. 85% of your team coming back. TC Taylor's got something to prove because for some odd reason they still love to throw the Dion name at him. What's going on with that? Let that be. He's gone. They still let it throw the Dion at him. So I think he's still trying to prove, hey, I can coach this team. And last night I saw a man coaching his team. Very, very shout out to TC and Jackson State. Then another thing, Southern, and it's just in the chat comment, everything like that. But those fans they're man, I don't have a word for them. They don't want the man's head.
Watch out.
Hey, they already want the man's head.
Hey, coach. Hey, cut his mic before he say something. He don't need to
watch
say.
Out, coach. You don't want to have Jag Nation on you, boy.
They already want the man's head. He's got to go. Who hired him? What we get him from? I'm like, first of all, y'all hired him. You guys promoted. You guys stood there and fought for him. He's there. Okay. Didn't look very, still a long season, but he's got to go right now. Get him out. Did he unpack his box? I'm just like, my mouth just dropped like, wow. And I remember saying it last year, like when they let Dooley go, I'm like, so basically, if you don't win Celebration Bowl, you got to go. So you're on a 1-year deal at Southern. Going through the door, you got to know, don't get comfortable. Hey, baby, don't unpack. Because if I don't win the Celebration Bowl, they're going to be on the front door like, hey, Frost, what's up, fella? Time to go. I went 9-2. Time to go. I mean, they're wild over there. They are like wild over there, like, God dang it. But once again, shout out to TC Taylor and Jackson State. I believe Terrence Graves and the boys will get better. People have been saying this too. I know I'm not hoping to take them too much time, but people saying dual threat quarterback. Why you play 2 quarterbacks? Well, let's go back and look at it. The first quarterback is a scrambler, throws a short ball well. The next guy, number 15, came in. He can see over the line and throws a deep ball well. Use both of them to your advantage. The name of the game is winning, especially when you got a crowd like that with they butcher knives already to get you when you come off the field. Use both quarterbacks. I play a 2 quarterback.
We need some
system.
sound effects, man.
I play a 2 quarterback system because you got to get what you can get.
That'd be too much like that other show, Jamie.
I mean, you got to get what you can get. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. Everything like that. But I also saw one more game. Do you want to talk about that game? We're gonna let it be.
Well, hold on. Let me come back because Edwin Moore got a question. I believe this is related to Southern. Talking about, did you notice any deficiencies in the blocking techniques? I'm assuming he's referring to Southern. Anything that you noticed in terms of their blocking technique?
They just weren't physical. They got big line. There's no doubt about it. They're big boys. They're 6'3", 6'5", 6'6". They're over 300 pounds. They had good feet work. Break it down from an O-line coach point of view. The feet work was shoulder width apart. Their back was bent. Their head was up. Their hands are good. They just weren't physical. That comes from within. As a coach, I can only get on your butt so much. But come game time, you have to do what you've been doing since age 7. You got to block. You got to play. So I'm not going to blame Coach Graves or the O-line coach. That comes from within them. They're big enough. They should be doing their job. Or let's go back to the old school days. Push that sled and give me some up downs. We're going to get this right because they're too big not to be blocking.
And the two Edwin, that's funny. The 2 quarterback system that Southern has. Now, a week ago, Jamie, it was Noah Biden who started and Savion Sept who came in relief, and it was Sept who had the big game. This week, it was the opposite. Sept started, Biden comes in relief. what was your impression of what you've seen from Southern? And I look, we know Southern's got a big game coming up with Prairie View. What's your take and evaluation of what you've seen from Southern thus far?
I think they're still trying to find an identity. I think Coach has brought up a good point, and typically Southern is very physical, especially at the point of attack, and they have quality running backs. So I'm not quite sure why they're not using them as they should. But I think the freshman came in and gave them a spark last week when Biden wasn't playing well and was able to go downfield and put some points on the board. So I think they were just trying to ride the hot hand. But when you're talking about the Boombox Classic, throwing a freshman or a redshirt freshman into that mix, I think that you're asking a lot. And I think within the course of the game he was injured as well. But I also think that you're asking a great deal you're just asking a lot for somebody to come into that game in that kind of hostile environment and play. But along with that, give kudos to Jackson State as well. I think they are finally establishing a culture and an identity. And they want to run the football, play good defense. That front seven defensively for Jackson State is absolutely punishing people. So I think, if they can continue to run the football along with the quarterback position, being able to run the football, because you get a lot out of them, they can have some timely passes within the SWAC. I think they'll be just fine because you got, a quality stable of backs. And I think that 2 quarterback system that they even go with does very well. Now, if they have to get in a shootout with somebody, and throwing the football, I think that's where you'll see some things. But the way the season has kind of gotten in the East, I don't know who throws the ball around in the SWAC in general anyway. That's why I said this game coming up this weekend is going to be interesting because I think Grambling can throw the ball some, even though I think they're kind of coming out of that as well. But just give kudos to Jackson State and TC. You got to understand his background. He came from the MEAC. He's a Jackson State guy through and through, but he's played and understands that physical sense of running the football, and he knows his personnel, and I think that's what they built it through. And so now them and FAMU are going to be interesting in the East because I don't think FAMU can throw it all around the yard, even though they have a phenomenal quarterback. I don't think, the same FAMU exists either as far as throwing the football, and everybody kind of has something that they're dealing with. There's no just great football team in the SWAC this year. So we'll see. It'll be interesting going into SWAC play. But Southern just has to find an identity, and eventually is going to have to stick with one of those guys. I don't know if you ride the freshmen's, that or hitch your wagons to him, or do you go back to Biden, who's the more experienced? But either way, they have to go with a 2 quarterback system because I don't think they know what they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what do you want to add?
Can I get a piece of this? Do we really know who anybody's identity is in the SWAC right now, Jamie? Because if you look at most of these SWAC schedules in 2024, everybody's played a check game. Most of them have played a Division II, and they've only played like level competition, be that FCS, one time. Outside of FAMU, who's played 2 FCSs, and Valley, who's played all their games against FCS, has anybody else played multiple FCS games?
No, but what I will say about that is, in addition to that, I think you got an excellent point with that. But in addition, a lot of these teams are dealing with new coordinators. And
quarterbacks.
Yes, and quarterbacks. So to say they know who they are right now, I think some have come into prominence more than others. We had no clue who FAMU was going to be. I'm going to be honest. I was on the field looking at Richardson, and I'm like, okay, who is this guy? He took Junior Muratovic's spot? Who is this dude? And you saw his film at Florida International, but I'm like, okay, who is this cat? And then I saw him on the field. Phenomenal quarterback in running that system and running the system. But I think people are now coming into their own in who they decide they are. Alabama State, for example. You thought something coming in, injury. Has taken that completely out.
I forgot to throw that into there as one of the variables.
Yeah, so this is why this is interesting. This is why the games at the beginning of the year really take a toll on what your conference schedule is going to be, because you never know who's going to come out of those games healthy. As much as we talk about a check game and how much it is for the budget and how much it is for certain things, there are also the injury factor that comes into play as well. So I think now is where you're starting to see everyone kind of get their footing into the conference schedule, and you'll see, what cream rises to the top.
But Jamie, I will say this, and I know y'all got to get to a break. Most of these injuries that we're talking about, Jamie, did not occur in those FBS games. So
good point.
Those injuries were going to happen no matter what. It's football.
Good point.
All right, so we got about 5 minutes left here in this segment. I want to give Coach an opportunity for the last game that he had a chance to watch, a game that AD had a chance to see, and that was in New York, where Hampton and Morehouse had a chance to play in the
that would be Howard.
Who did I say? I'm sorry, thank you. Howard and Morehouse.
You a week ahead of letting that one H take over the other H, Brian.
I haven't got to trolling them yet. I'm still being nice. I'm calling him Howard right now. It won't last for long. But yes, Howard and Morehouse played in New York. I can't. What is the official name of that classic?
They call it the HBCU NY Classic. That's what I saw.
Okay. Thank you. I knew it was something easy to remember like that.
Yeah, he's correct. HBCU NY.
Okay, what was your take on that game, Coach? You got a chance to see as Howard took care of business. I think it was 35-14 over Morehouse. What was your thoughts there as you watched that?
First of all, let's go back a week. Remember last week when I said unfair for the big brothers to beat up the little brothers the way they do. I understand you got to get a win, but it's why embarrass them when you're so much better and bigger than they are? Howard was bigger, faster, stronger than Morehouse. Their defensive line was better than Morehouse's offense, period. They shut them down. Morehouse's offensive line's not very good. I don't know if they're young. I don't know the coach, but until that offensive line gets better, they're going to struggle offensively. That quarterback's okay. He can roll out left, right, set his feet, and he can throw the flat route. He can throw little dink-dinks and things like that. They got 3 or 4 guys on that offense that can get loose if they're in space. But it starts with that offensive line. They're just not very good. There was no run game at all. Quarterback was rushed, sacked. Defensively, their best player is a 5'7", 185-pound guy. They compared him to Sam Mills. I don't know if some of you guys remember Sam Mills played for the Saints and the Panthers.
You talk about Morehouse?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's 5'9".
You probably talk about Caleb Grant.
Okay, that may be him there. I mean, he had a sack, he had a couple rushes. He was sideline to sideline. That little brother was doing everything. He was doing everything, and he was like 5'7", 185, 5'8", 185, or something like that. Same size as the quarterback from Clark Atlanta, everything like that. Defensively, they were somewhat scrappy. They gave up a couple. I still call it the Wildcat. I don't know what people call it these days when the quarterback just takes a direct snap and takes up the field. Quarterback scored twice on those. One time he shook like 3 people in open field and ran like 40 yards. Another time he went like 6 yards around the corner. They couldn't stop their run game. Howard looked good. Howard, the quarterback from Howard threw the ball well. They caught the ball well. They got a big tight end. I'm old school. I like to go back. They got a tight end. Remember Keith Byers? Played in Oklahoma, played for the Eagles. They got a big tight end look like him, and he did an out route. The quarterback hit him, and it's funny. The DB from Morehouse was hanging on to his shoulders, and he just like slung him. And dude went flying to the sideline. He ran like 30 yards up the field for a touchdown. Everything like that. Like I say, Morehouse, they defensively they're going to be okay. I heard the commentators say this was their 3rd head coach in 3 years at that game, but they still got the same defensive coordinator. So I was thinking to myself, he's doing a good job with the defense. Are they not trying to look at him as the head coach? I mean, I know they got Terrence Mathis now, or maybe he don't want the job and everybody wants to be a head coach. I do, obviously, everything like that, but not everybody wants that seat. So I was thinking about that because I'm thinking he's done a pretty good job. From what I know about Morehouse's defense, he's been there 7 years, and he's put together pretty good group of young men. Now, they weren't big at all. I didn't see no body size, no yokeness, no nothing of them that say, whoa, okay. I mean, everybody was average size, but they were getting after it for the most part. But Howard was just too much for them. Once again, I want to say shout out to Howard for not beating up the little brothers. Like, take him to the backyard. I know I can whoop you, but I'm just going to rush you to let you know I'm still the bigger brother. And that's what they did to them. So I was happy to see that compared to what we saw last week with some of that crap that went on. And this week, we didn't see that. Well, what happened? But hey, it is what it is. But Morehouse, until they fix that offensive line, they're going to struggle. Howard, I think they're pretty good, but we'll see next week when they got the Battle of the Ages.
Yeah. Yeah. Final score was 35-21. Morehouse, of course, Howard had a 35-7 lead.
I think they took, not to cut you off, Brian, but I think they took out some of their starters. That's when the Morehouse was able to move the ball and they got to the end zone. I think Howard took out a couple starters.
Okay. Yeah. And in the fourth quarter, Morehouse was able to score 2 late touchdowns in the fourth quarter to as coach would say, make it a little more respectable on the scoreboard. Howard improves to 2-1, Morehouse 0-3. Jamie, what can a team like Howard take away from a game like that? And, obviously Morehouse still looking for win number 1 in the Terrence Mathis era.
I think that Howard really doesn't take anything away from it. I think, scrimmaging, I hate to use that word, because there are 2 teams that want to win that football game. But what I will say is I would give more credit to Morehouse than anything because they came and played. They came and fought. I think under the Terrence Mathis era, I've seen a couple of games now where that team looks a little more put together. I kind of compare it to Benedict in that you really didn't know what you were going to get. And I would say even more with Morehouse. You didn't know what the expectations were because they hired him even later than Benedict hired Coach Dickerson. So you really didn't know. But kudos to that coaching staff. They're putting together some things. Kamar Carlisle is quarterback at Morehouse. I think, he's experienced, so it looks pretty good. And I know they're trying to implement, a spread system, run and shoot type system. That's what, coach is accustomed to. So I think, looking at that, I think they are a little further along than I thought, even though they're still struggling, because we didn't expect them to look like much at all, to be perfectly honest with you, just because of the lateness of everything that transpired in the recruiting class that they really didn't get in. So I think Morehouse is building. It's just going to be a tough year for them overall. But how we're going into next week is going to be very interesting playing Hampton, because I think Hampton is loaded and ready. So we'll see how that goes.
Howard's
one thing to note.
Go ahead, Drew.
I would say one thing to note about Morehouse and their improvement after turning the ball over 10 times in the first 2 games. The offense did not turn the ball over against Howard. The 2 fumbles that Morehouse had were on special teams this past Saturday.
And where I was going to add, I was just going to make note of Howard's quarterback. Coach mentioned Jalen Tolbert, 23 of 41, 276 yards, 4 touchdown passes, did have 1 interception. Now, to note that Tolbert was not the quarterback who led them to the comeback win last week against Mercyhurst. I believe that was Scroggins. And Scroggins had a very good game on the final drive, which got them to the 20-yard line. So
Scroggins was hurt.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure what had happened, but so for whoever gets the nod against Hampton, you've got 2 quarterbacks who have shown some proficiency in getting your 2 wins. So it'll be real interesting from that perspective to see what happens when the 2 teams take place. And just to answer your question, Lennon, yes, Howard and Hampton will be on TV. It'll be on ESPN Plus. So you will be able to watch it 3:30 Eastern from Washington, D.C. And that's where you will be able to watch that game. So we'll talk about that here coming up a little bit later. All right, Coach, as we wrap up our time with you this evening, Final thoughts, any preparations? I sent you an email with some games for next week, and Jamie and I will spotlight some of those games coming up here later on in the show. But which games are you looking forward to for next week?
The Howard Hampton, for sure. Howard Hampton, I'm looking for that one, the Battle of the H's. That's always a good one. I looked at the list, but I'm going to have to go back just to spot it. But I'm going to try to get 3 games in again this week. Drew, you going to send me that list again?
Always, my brother, always.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And so I'll let you know later in the week, BF, which 3 I get. But I'm definitely going to get the Howard Hampton in, and I'll get 2 more in. Jamie, always good to see you, brother. Look forward to doing business with you this year. BF, stay strong, and hey, appreciate what you guys do for me. Hopefully this is going to be my year. I'm feeling good, and enjoy your week, fellas. See you next Sunday.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Drew, I don't know. Obviously, we only talked offline about joining us for this segment, so I understand if you have to scramble. Any words that you want to leave for the people as you sign out?
No, it's just exciting to be back around HBCU football at that level once again. But I still can't tell y'all the full extent yet because the ink has not dried. So, we're gonna call this a real professional tease. But anybody who wants to do some research can go out there.
You can do the research
and do the research.
Hey, Brian,
and you may have seen my name in a couple of places.
Brian, don't take him down. Brian, don't take him down.
No,
don't change that logo yet, Brian. Don't change that logo, man.
Don't do it.
Don't take him down.
Don't change the logo.
I haven't changed the locks on the doors yet.
Okay.
So your key still works, Drew. The key still works. The passwords have not been changed.
But he didn't tell y'all that I can't get past the security gate because they'll cut my access card off from a parking place, man. He didn't tell y'all all that down, did he?
Well, I know it did. It's a cold world out here.
Hey, I hope y'all get to that question I left for y'all in the private chat. If y'all get time
yeah, we'll take a look at that. Good stuff. If you're in the chat room, hopefully you're getting some good intel as Dr. Cavill is in the chats, dropping some great knowledge in the chat room. So come on over to MyJBN online and come on over and catch up, be a part of the conversation there. When Jamie and I come back, we'll talk about the remaining 2 games from the past weekend that are part of the top 5 games. And then start looking ahead at the upcoming week, as well as some of the top performers from this past week with our 6-pack of players from week number 3 of the HBCU season. So, Coach Farasi, AD Drew, thank you for popping in. Thanks for your time. And Coach, we'll see you next weekend. Aloha, Coach.
Take care, fellas.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too. Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember. They can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody.
Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
All right, welcome back to BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford, Jamie Walker here, kind of recapping some of the top games from the past week. So our top 5 games, of course, we had Hampton 37, Norfolk State 7, Clark Atlanta, Florida Memorial ending in a 28-28 tie after weather caused that game to end. And then you had Jackson State at home beating Southern 33-15. The other 2 games that are part of the top 5. Let's go to the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis, Tennessee. Jamie, have you ever been to this game, this classic?
I have not, man. I want to go. Only because of the atmosphere and just because of just wanting to go to all the actual classics in HBCU football.
Right. This was the 35 years of this classic. And of course, it was synonymous with Tennessee State and Jackson State until Deion Sanders came along. Anyway, and now it's Tennessee State. It's probably not because of him, but anyway, Tennessee State now plays UAPB in this contest, and this is the second year between UAPB and Tennessee State. Well, 2 teams who came into the ball game a little Jekyll and Hyde. Both had big defeats. Both had big time victories. And so you really didn't know who these 2 teams were until they actually played. And I think the game kind of played out to script in terms of, 69 total points being scored. Tennessee State would walk away with a 41-28 victory in the 35th Southern Heritage Classic. TSU's Draylon Ellis threw 3 touchdown passes in the second quarter alone to lead the Tigers to the 41-28 victory. Tennessee State improved to 2-1. The lead grew to as much as 38-14 in the third quarter before UAPB got a pair of touchdowns from their own quarterback, Mekhi Higgins, who threw 3 touchdown passes in the contest, sort of kept UAPB around in the contest. Ellis was 20 of 33, 228 yards. Higgins was 15 of 31 for 276. Javani Gibbons for UAPB had 5 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. The attendance numbers, 27,584. Jamie, I don't know if this game was on TV. I don't know. It's kind of a couple years. It's been on ESPN Plus. I don't know if this made it onto one of the streaming sites. But anyway, when you think about
I think it was on HBCU Go.
Okay, so maybe that's what it was. HBCU Go. Okay, so I must have missed that memo. But so those of you who did watch it on HBCU Go, you had a chance to watch it. Just your thoughts on Tennessee State, this contest, and I think the Tigers might be a real player in the OVC race.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think everyone has been waiting for Tennessee State in particular under the Eddie George regime to be able to take that next step up. They've beat up on UAPB the last couple of years in the Southern Heritage Classic, and I think this game kind of indicated, it was the score was respectable at the end, but I think the Tigers asserted their dominance once again. I think UAPB really couldn't do much against Tennessee State, Draylon Ellis still showing himself to be a formidable quarterback within that offense, and their ability to run the football is really a testament to what Eddie George does. Defensively, not really sure about, and in going into OVC play, I think this is the year that they should be able to do some things. They did some damage last year, but at the end kind of tailed off. So I think this year is the year they have to, kind of put up or shut up within saying they're going to make some noise within the league, playing the likes of North Dakota State and, all those powerhouses within the FCS is one thing, but it's another when you say you can, compete in your conference. So right now they're getting the kudos. When they get into conference play, I think it's time for them to, at least be in the upper third of that conference. I think this is the year because they have so many pieces that are coming back, especially at the quarterback position. When you can keep yours, when so many teams have not been able to keep their quarterback, I think it is time for them to take that next step up.
Yeah. And UAPB, interesting. I still don't know. I heard some people mention that maybe UAPB might be a challenger in the West. I don't know. I mean, I think that says something about the West, doesn't it?
It does, but I think, it does. But I think the explosion of, they have some pieces. They have the quarterback Higgins that is able to show some signs of life when it comes to that offense. But I'm just not sure what they are overall. And I love that coaching staff. I like, what they're able to do, and they're really good and enthusiastic people. We talked to them at Media Day, but I'm just not sure from a talent standpoint how much talent they can acquire to be able to really compete in that SWAC West. Now, when you're talking about the West overall, I don't know if you call it watered down. I don't know if they'll be the last place team because I think there's a lot of teams that are competing and trying not to be the bottom feeders of that division. But there's so much uncertainty that any given Saturday, you may have a team that jumps up. But again, I think you got those up top when you're dealing with Alcorn, when you're dealing with PV, that are right up there. Texas Southern beat PV, so they're right up there. I think Grambling has something to say. So I think you have a lot of competing interests, and those can, people are able. You can at least point to a direction where they could be, right up there in the thick of things afterwards. It's going to be bloody towards the end of the season, but I think the likes of Southern and the likes of UAPB, you're just not sure what you're getting so far from the standpoint offensively and defensively. And I know we talked about identity earlier. I'm not sure what the identity is with any of them.
You know what I'd like for us to do, Jamie, and as I hear you talking, I keep going back to thinking the teams that have the quarterbacks are the teams who are going to separate themselves, especially in the second third of the season. And then the ones who really have the quarterbacks are the ones who are going to win it in the final third of the season. So, maybe what we should look to do next week, a little project for us to do both for next week, is maybe rank quarterbacks. Not we'll have like a quarter, 3 to 4 games, depending upon who had a bye and who didn't. But we'll have 3 to 4 games under our belt. And instead of doing preseason analysis on who you have as the top quarterback, we actually have statistics. We can actually kind of look at completion percentage, yards, touchdown, interception ratios, things like that, and maybe kind of do a ranking of quarterbacks per conference, MEAC and SWAC. We don't have to go too deep into the D2s just yet, but maybe at least MEAC and SWAC. And if we want to include CIAA/OBC, we can do that as well. I don't know, one of those two, so I'm just throwing that out there. You kind of let me know if you want to go overall or just per conference. Because I think really being able to look at who has good quarterback play, because if UAPB is going to get 4 to 5 wins this year, it's going to be because Higgins is healthy and he's able to keep them competitive. Which is one of the things that they didn't have last year. I remember Coach talking about they didn't have Higgins, and that hurt them. And so I know they feel confident with him in the lineup. So
Coach Hampton. Yeah, Coach Hampton did talk about that at Media Day. He talked about people buying in and the culture and things of that nature. But ultimately, it comes down to talent. And I think in the SWAC in particular, where I think quarterback play is very interesting. If you do, I think there would be something to that project, because I think if you got a QB, you got a chance.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to our final top 5 game. And I saved this one for last because while we may not have called this the best, because obviously I think probably the game that was trending to be the best game of the weekend was Florida Memorial and Clark. I would say this game between Grambling at Texas A&M Commerce was probably the second best. It went into overtime. Grambling would end up getting a 35-28 win over Texas A&M Commerce. The Grambling State defense would end up forcing or getting 6 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries against Texas A&M Commerce. That even included a defensive touchdown, a pick 6. Now, all of this despite giving up 419 yards of total offense. So, I mean, yeah, they did a lot of bending, but if you're going to give up 419 yards of total offense, you better be mixing it up with some turnovers, and that's what they did. Grambling State was +3 in the turnover battle. So that means the offense gave up 3 turnovers, and Grambling only had the ball for 24 minutes. So, again, just highlighting here what it took to win this ball game for Grambling on the road. The fact that the defense had to play above their skis, so to speak, where Texas A&M Commerce had the ball for 36 minutes compared to Grambling's 24. The halftime score was 21-21. Grambling State defense would get a 4th and 2 stop on their own 25-yard line with 3:51 to play in the 4th quarter. Grambling would turn around, go 6 plays, 75 yards in 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Nicholas Howard, a 27-yard pass from Miles Crawley. Extra point is good. Grambling State ties the game up at 28. In overtime, Grambling got the ball first, scored on a Trey Bradford run from 2 yards, and then Grambling State's defense did what they've done all game, intercepted their 4th pass of the game, 6th overall, to seal the victory. Big win for the G-men, 35-28. Miles Crawley was 14 of 30, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Trey Bradford, 15 carries, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jamie, you impressed with Grambling State's win?
I'm impressed with them because I listened to that game on the way back from Columbia. And what I will tell you is I was impressed by the way they came back and won that game. I think in the past, they may have folded out of conference, opponent. And regardless of what their record is, there are some opponents that, when play, when people step out of whatever their conference competition is, sometimes they don't live up to the hype as far as winning. But what ended up happening was they came back and found a way to win. I think when you're talking about the way the defense is now playing, that is much improved, even more so than the offense. You got former head coach Eric Dooley now running the offense for Grambling. But you got to give kudos to that defense, able to come up with those kind of turnovers, especially when you're trying to mount a comeback. And regardless of who the opponent is, there's some hope. Listen, I understand you leave a team around enough or let them lead long enough, they start to believe in themselves. And so to show the resolve and being able to come back and using your defense and then make timely passes to score enough to finally win the game in overtime is a thing of beauty. I think that motivates the squad going in. But I'm just not sure what they are in totality, especially going in this game with Jackson State. Because I think Jackson State, again, we keep talking about identity. It still remains to be seen what Grambling's identity is going forward. I think you got Miles Crawley, who, you know, was picked to be, you know, the SWAC player, offensive player of the year. And so when you're talking about him being consistent is what you're looking for here. I think with a quarterback-driven offense, such as with typical of Eric Dooley offense, if you look at him, you know, over the years, the quarterback is that most important piece, and he is the person that kind of, you know, drives the ship of that offense. And so Crawley has to be better than what he's been. You know, you pointed out the stats, throw under 50%, but in the time that he was needed, made a few plays. So I think that goes, that says a lot about where this offense is going. It looks like they're trending up. It'll be an interesting game going into this weekend.
And look, I'll say this about Texas A&M Commerce. You know, going into the contest, they were rated probably in the 80s with or above some SWAC teams that some of y'all have high affinity and affection for. So let's not, you know, going on the road is hard. Going on the road and getting a win is hard. And of course, you know, the fact that Texas A&M Commerce was able to put up the kind of yardage and have the ball for the amount of time that they had, the only thing that kept Grambling in that game was the defense's ability to come up with 6 turnovers, 5 of them in regulation, and a pick 6 for a touchdown. So, you know, sometimes it's the defense that has to do the job if the offense is struggling. And so,
and you really couldn't say that last year under the last defensive coordinator. I think it was Cedric Thornton. So, you know, kudos to that defense being able to go out and make plays.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, just a couple other news and notes from some games that I found, and Jamie, feel free to add in on here. We finally, I think the CIAA versus SIAC matchups are all done, and it is a clean sweep for the CIAA as they go 6-0 versus their D2 brethren, HBCU brethren, after Livingstone's 23-21 win over Allen. Allen really only scored their 21 points on 3 big plays through the contest, but Livingstone managed to come away victorious there at the end. And you know, Jamie, I you know, we hinted at this a little bit earlier. I'll be interested to see how the CIAA's rating fares when it's time for the regional rankings with the CIAA. You know, when that consideration comes up of how many teams from the CIAA are rated in that top 8, 10, or whatever it is that they do in the Division II level versus the SIAC schools. Will these matchups between the CIAA and the SIAC, how much of a factor will that be?
I'm not sure, just considering because a lot of times, because of how the committee or whoever chooses within region just kind of rates our conferences. So a lot of that goes into it, but it is who you beat as well. I think a couple of years ago it was 2 SIAC teams and 1 CIAA team. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. I think they're in different regions this year. So I think the CIAA is playing more north, because I think Virginia Union went to Kutztown last year, so they end up in Pennsylvania. So I'll be interested to see just how that goes. But the CIAA, man, overall has absolutely dominated the SIAC. And I call games for the SIAC. So, not that, but I grew up in CIAA country. So just the style of ball, we oftentimes compare to MEAC and the SWAC. But it's interesting. I think as soon as the quarterback play improved in the CIAA, so did the teams. Johnson C. Smith has a really good signal caller. Christian Peters from Shaw, saw him up close and personal. He played well. Isaiah Freeman up there in Lincoln, even though they got, beat to sleep this weekend, they're a much improved team over the last couple of years. So when you're talking about the improved quarterback play of areas, you know, we talked about it. And I think maybe we'll touch on it, but I know the time is dwindling down. But you look at that score of Valdosta State over Fayetteville State, who's been a perennial champion in Valdosta State, and someone that's been in the playoffs for years in Fayetteville State, and you see that score. That's the kind of information that you have people look at as a litmus test towards who gets in. So it'll be interesting to see, because the CIAA is divisionless. So, whoever gets in that championship game, it'll be interesting to see, because it could very well be a case of the Virginia schools playing twice, or who knows, maybe a dark horse squad like Johnson C. Smith, who is showing they are for real, may jump up there as well. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, but definitely the CIAA deserves to have more than one squad if it just shapes up to be that way.
Yeah, and there you can see the scores. If you're watching, you can see the scores. Winston-Salem State getting a win, 19-13, I think, in overtime. Second consecutive week they had to play an overtime game. This time they actually got it done. ECSU gets a shutout, 20-0. Disappointing loss for Shaw. Shaw got it close. They got to within 2 points, 28-30, late in the fourth quarter, but were unable to stop Catawba, who went on I think it was an 11-play drive. I think we mentioned, we were talking about it offline before we came on the air. An 11-play drive that just chewed up the clock, and they just knocked Shaw out with a final blow. Of course, that Johnson C. Smith victory, 52-6. Credit their quarterback, Darius Ocean, 20 of 29, 236. And Breville Caldwell, 11 catches, 152 and a touchdown. I mean, Johnson C. Smith all over. And yeah, the Valdosta shutout. I'm more disappointed in Fayetteville than anything. I'm like, damn, shutout? I thought that would be a little bit closer in score, but it is what it is, right? Over in the SIAC, some of the scores from off the SIAC website. Valley with a 40, Fort Valley State. I shouldn't say it that way, because when you say it that way, you think of one valley. Fort Valley State. Let me put some respect on their name. 42-0 over Kentucky State. This is all I'm gonna say. Kentucky State, and this is, I don't know if you want to call this stat of the day or just kind of store this one away. The Thoroughbreds have been outscored 160-14. They have been shut out in 10 of the 12 quarters that they have played this year in 3 games. And to even continue to add on to the amazingness of this streak or run of ineptitude or just struggle that they're going through right now, they gave up. They opened the season with 7 points against Virginia Union, right? Then gave up 69 straight points. In game number 2 against Alabama A&M, they gave up 49 straight points before they scored in the fourth quarter. So that, you do the math, folks, that was a streak of 118 points that they gave up in the middle of those 2 games. And then, of course, giving up 42 and being shut out. All I keep going back to, Jamie, is I remember people thinking that Kentucky State's defense was going to be competitive and keep them competitive.
This is the thing, though, B. Their offense is not complementing what the defense does. If you look at the beginning of that game, even the Fort Valley game, I was listening to that on the way to Columbia as I was trying to get it on a certain channel. But nonetheless, man, they competed. It was the offense that just kept putting the defense right back out there. And Fort Valley just, kept doing what they do as far as running the football and taking the likes of Kelvin Durham and others, and just eventually just when you are defense just been out on the field forever, man, it just takes its toll. So in all 3 of those games, that's been the case. We can point to the defense completely, but I think if you ask Coach Huggins, he would point to the offense not really sustaining drives as a major contributor to that.
A couple other SIAC scores you had in there. And we'll kind of get in, I guess, in just mentioning it. Alcorn State gets a win 38-7 over Edward Waters, although it took a while. It took a half, because I think the halftime score was like 10-0. So I don't say what you will. It was 10-0, Alcorn on Edward Waters, and it is what it is. I'm just saying.
Listen, Brian, I think a bunch of our predictions at the beginning of the year for a lot of people are going to be totally busted by the time we get to the end of the season. I just do. We are literally just guessing. We are literally just guessing.
You know what? This is the one year, Jamie, I cannot argue with you saying that because of the amount of turnover from just coaches and quarterbacks. Yeah, you really it was a guess. It is a guess at the beginning of the year, and that's why. Again, I go to saying, the Black College Sports Network will be putting out our first official poll or ranking, I should say, after this upcoming weekend's games, because we like to have that sample size of 4 games under the belt before we can really start ranking teams. And then we can really say, okay, this is what the preseason poll rankings should have looked like instead of the fluidity and the fluctuations that you see in so many polls. I mean, it is what it is, right? Yeah, so Central State also in there. I see they got a big win, 10-3, a lot of defense or a lot of in-up scoring, one of the two, but 10-7 victory over Central State. Congrats to Central State over Savannah State in that contest. Also in some other scores, in case you missed them, from out of the MEAC. Those are those MEAC scores. Disappointing loss for Delaware State. Right when people were getting on the Delaware State train, man. People were getting excited, and then they lose 30-7 at home to Wagner. As mentioned a little bit, Georgia Southern. I thought this was interesting, Jamie. 42-14 over South Carolina State. But the statistics, that game should have been a lot closer because I think South Carolina State actually either won or was right there stepping toe with Georgia Southern in terms of total offense in that contest. But, the scoreboard is the scoreboard, and they lose 42-14. UNC Chapel Hill takes out North Carolina Central 45-10. Ohio 21-6 over Morgan. Morgan State covers, though, for those of you who are interested. And I know we talked about some of those other games this morning on Extra Credit with Dr. DeVille. And then in the SWAC, Prairie View shut out by Michigan State, although they did cover the 42.5. Western Michigan puts up 59 on Bethune, but Bethune-Cookman scored 31. So if we want to be positive, there's your positive. Bethune-Cookman scored 31, but they gave up 59. Valley, Murray State puts 59 on Valley. 59-8 is the score. We already mentioned Jackson State Southern. Alabama State played a close ball game. They lose 12-7 to Samford, also within the state of Alabama. Alabama A&M, 24-16 over NAIA Georgetown College. Georgetown of Kentucky College. Yes, that's NAIA. So, yeah, 24-16 was the final score. And so there you see, the only school from the SWAC who did not play was Florida A&M, as they had a bye this upcoming week. And they will take on Troy in the upcoming week. Any comments there on the scoreboard, Jamie?
Yeah, I another game I was listening to was or looking at the film on was Alabama A&M, and Georgetown was running the football down their throat and stopping them. It was interesting the way that game developed, because I thought that would be a sure A&M victory, decisive. But as things happen, hey, you never know. You just never know.
Yeah. Okay. Transitioning over to our 6-pack of top performers from week number 3. Got a pair of guys from the FCS level, and then I got 4 names from off of the Division II level. So plenty of quality candidates here, but we'll start with the Southern Heritage Classic MVP, Draylon Ellis from Tennessee State. He was 20 of 33, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs in the victory for TSU. We've also got Bethune-Cookman's Darnell Dees, a running back / kick returner. Had not one, but 2 kickoff returns, one from 95, another from 98 yards. Total 4 kickoff returns, 225 total yards, but the 2 touchdowns were definitely the highlight of the game for Bethune-Cookman. He might have had the best special teams performance, but right there with him, Lane's wide receiver, Anthony Evelyn, 8 receptions, 164 yards and a touchdown, and a punt return touchdown of 82 yards. Also from Lane, running back Ike Brown, 23 carries, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. So not one, but 2 Lane players make the 6-pack. And I don't know, Jamie, am I shorting the quarterback of Lane? I mean, Edwin's asked me not the Lane quarterback. Should I include him? Should he be included?
I would give it. I tell you what, he commanded that offense and ran it to perfection. But they used the running game to set up what he was doing. So he made some big plays, but I think the running game aided him in being in those receivers being wide open. So I would say more so Anthony Evelyn than anything, just because of his special teams play included.
Right. Well, there you go. Fort Valley State's quarterback Kelvin Durham, 17 of 20, 283 and 4 touchdowns in Fort Valley State's shutout victory over Kentucky State. And then the last guy, Johnson C. Smith's wide receiver, Breville Caldwell. He caught 11 passes. That's a weekly high from among any wide receiver on the HBCU level, I believe. 11 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown. Johnson C. Smith put up 52 in a 52-6 win over Lincoln. Any special considerations that you like to give, Jamie, in there on our 6-pack of players?
Oh, wow. I think those are good. I think when you look at, we talked about him earlier. I think Coach Farasi, talked about Stud Still, 6 receptions, 132 yards and a touchdown. That's something to say, especially just what we considered what they did the week before and how the running game was more of what they did. The passing game showed up in the game against Clark Atlanta, even though these stats are wiped out now. Is that what it is?
I think those stats will stay. According to Drew, he was saying they'll stay because they went to halftime, because they made it to the half. I guess the stats have to go to half. And I don't know, Drew, I'm sure Drew's watching, or if he's in the chat, you can put that in there and let us know. But I think the stats will count because they made it to at least a halftime. Yeah.
Okay. But otherwise, hey, I like the selections.
Yeah. Edwin says, what conference represents those selections? Well, Tennessee State of the OVC, Bethune-Cookman of the SWAC, and then Fort Valley and Lane of the SIAC, and Johnson C. Smith of the CIAA. So there's your conference breakdown for those of you who inquire. Okay, so Drew just sent me a text. He says, to his knowledge, halftime on a suspended game. So the stats count. And again, I can just only imagine, Jamie, those numbers for a half are as good as some people's numbers for an entire game.
That just tells you what that game was going to come down to. I mean, if you like offense, it would have been phenomenal.
Yes. Oh, okay. So I see what you're doing, Edwin. You're being messy. Yes. So no, the MEAC was missing. Yes. Point served. Okay. This morning, in case you missed it, Dr. Cavill released his new top 7 rankings this morning. not Tennessee State, but Texas Southern comes in at number 7. Howard comes in at number 6. Grambling at 5. Tennessee State at 4. Hampton at 3. Jackson State at 2. Florida A&M at 1. And if you notice on the far right column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools that were not ranked in the top 7 the week before. Fascinating how that works. So, again, I think the voters, as you start to build up your resume, I think the voters are starting to give you credit for being who you are and what you've done in the totality of the season to date versus what you were a week ago, if that makes sense. I told Jamie I would kind of let people know my personal top 10, just because I do vote in a few places. So if I have to give out my top 10, here's my top 10 teams just on the FCS level. Number 10, I've got Delaware State at 10. I've got North Carolina Central at 9. Number 8, I've got South Carolina State at 8. Grambling, I have at 7. Tennessee State, I have ranked 6th. Hampton, ranked 5th. Howard, ranked 4th. I don't know how long that's going to last. And then I have Morgan State ranked 3rd, and Jackson State 2, with FAMU still holding the number 1 spot for the 3rd consecutive week. And as I said, we had a great debate. I encourage you to go back and listen to the show from this morning. Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU SportsWrap, episode 548. We talked about these rankings. Jamie, you heard where I finally put Morgan State at 3. What's your thoughts there? Am I too much special consideration for Morgan State at 3?
Yeah. Just only because if it were a week, I would say no. But the last couple of weeks, they haven't been able to score. And I think that's a worry going into MEAC play, because I'm just not sure where they're going to be going forward. We talked about, that first game they won. It was a thing that, okay, they finally found the offense. Well, it's been non-existent. And so now, especially that game against Towson, where it was so, I thought that game would be a signature game for them in general. But I think, probably Morgan should probably be down, I would say 6 or 7 if we're going top 10. So somewhere in there. I think they're still up there because as we get into conference play, man, I think they'll be right there. Although South Carolina State is turning heads. They really are, because I didn't think the offense would pick up this quick in what they're doing. I saw Eric Phoenix when he was at Benedict, and seeing him operate this offense for South Carolina State is interesting, and I think they are better than I thought they would be. So I'm curious to see where the chips may fall, but it'll be a sprint to the Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, and look, I understand it. I even got called out a little bit for it because look, Morgan plays VUL this upcoming week, right? So I'm setting the bar. Anything less than a 50-point victory by Morgan, and you are dropping. They still might drop because Howard and Hampton play each other. So those two teams sitting at 4 and 5, Jamie, I'm gonna just be transparent. I am likely to put one of those two teams ahead of Morgan going into after week number 4. I am. I'm just being honest with it, okay? But I also think there's some room there based on who Tennessee State has to play. And, hey, let's keep it buck. If Grambling takes out Jackson State, anything's possible based on production, if that happens, right?
If that happens, they'll be number 2. I think anyway. I think they take the leap. You could argue if Hampton, boat races Howard, and Grambling does that to Jackson State, if that happens, yeah, you got some trouble. And now I'm not gonna go that far to challenge number one, but they would be in consideration because at that point they're showing complete team type status. So we'll see.
Well, and here's the thing with number one, and we're going to talk about this here as we kind of pivot towards our games for the upcoming weekend. And, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and already label this. Hold on, where is it at? Lost it. Label this as our FCS versus FBS game of the week. FAMU travels north to Troy in Alabama. Troy, who is 0-3, just lost to Iowa, for those who might have watched. And Troy is having the kind of season that I thought they would, which is I think the season win total for Troy was like 5 or 6 games. And I kept hearing people say, take the under, because this is a new Troy team, new coach, only really 4 returning starters on offense and defense. It is wide open for Florida A&M to get a win. It's wide open for Florida A&M to be competitive going into the fourth quarter. What will cost FAMU votes? 2 things. A less than stellar performance against Troy, and probably more than anything, Jackson State going on the road and beating Grambling. And, you know, because not everybody looks at polls the way I do, and I respect that because it is what it is. But if FAMU gets their tails handed to them by Troy, an 0-3 group of 5 team, and let's just say Jackson State dominates Grambling the way they dominated Southern, I will have no complaints with anybody. I might even do it myself, because you are what you are. You are what your record says you are at this point in the season.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Have no objection to what you said.
Yeah. So that's one of our spotlight games for the weekend. Also, a game of note that our first, we can't say it's our first, but a very interesting SWAC West Division matchup happening at Prairie View as Southern goes on the road for the second consecutive week, taking on Prairie View A&M. Is it too early to say must-win game for Southern, Jamie?
No, I don't think it's too early. Because of that fan base who's very passionate about their squad. So I don't think it's too early because the heat is on if they lose that game.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Lawrence says fan will still be ranked in the FCS poll despite the loss. We'll see. We'll see. That's all I'm gonna say. We'll see. I know how the voters can be sometimes. Edwin says Troy's crowd and the refs will make it really challenging to win there. And there's a lot of history there from the FCS or 1AA playoff history, where FAMU and Troy had to play a couple of years, I think in back-to-back years. So there's going to be a lot of animosity there in that contest. Edwin says Southern doesn't lose in Prairie View. Okay, I hope not. I hope not. That's all I'm gonna say. Hope not. We'll see. Let's see. Give me 1 second here, James, as we get here. All right. Okay. Going into, I lost my schedule here. Where's it at? All right. Let's get into our 6-pack of games going into this week. Jamie, first off, are you calling any games this weekend? Are you on the road broadcasting any games this weekend?
I am not. It'll probably be honeydew list weekend for me. So yeah.
All right. Q Buck. All right. Honeydew list on the agenda for J-Dub. So Jamie can give any kind of analysis or predictions and not have to feel some kind of way about it. All right. We've got so our slate of 6 games. It's kind of interesting how this works out. We've got 3 FCS CS matchups, 2 CIAA matchups, which I think are cream of the crop, A1 level matchups. And then we have a game that we will call our D2 versus FCS game of the week. And that is in Daytona Beach, Florida, as Clark Atlanta gets on the buses again, travels back to Florida, and they will take on Bethune-Cookman. That is winless Bethune-Cookman, 0-3 Bethune-Cookman against unbeaten 2-0-1 Clark Atlanta. They might have the best quarterback in HBCU football, as AD asked earlier. As he said, if David Wright leads Clark to victory, will people begin to consider him as the best quarterback in HBCU? Jamie, this game, huh?
Begin.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Hey, look, some people are already on that
yes.
train. Yeah. This game, I believe, is a 3:30 kickoff. It's on HBCU Go. Jamie, what's your thoughts? You don't have to give a prediction if you don't want to, but I've been on record and I'll say it again. But what's your take on this ball game?
I kind of, gave my point earlier with Dr. Cavill. I think it's exciting to think about the offense when it comes to that game. But I think the number of scholarships and the talent and just being able to overcome what you have overall, it may be a little bit too much for Clark Atlanta. And had Bethune-Cookman not scored in this last ball game that they did, it kind of indicates to me that the offense is waking up a little bit. I would have gone full tilt Clark Atlanta. But I think Bethune-Cookman ekes it out. I think it's close, but would not be surprised at all if Clark Atlanta wins it. But I'm gonna say Bethune-Cookman.
I know y'all think I'm being petty. I've heard it, and I'm right there. I wear my orange and green on my chest. And yes, I can be petty, but I'm backing it up with facts and the data, as they like to say, right? And I'm just looking at, I watched Clark for the last 3 weeks, and I watched David Wright do, and I watched this offense move the way they move. They put up points. This may be a shootout, Jamie. I'm going to tell you now. This game will go over 60 points. The question is, who's going to have the ball last? Or maybe whose defense gives up a touchdown? Whose special teams gives up a touchdown? I see this game well going over because Bethune-Cookman has showed you they can't stop water off the faucet. They have shown that. They've shown it. And now you're coming up against the wrong team that you can't stop the water from flowing. This is the wrong team to have to deal with. So, I'm telling you, this game is going over 60 points. I'm calling it. Yeah, Karen, I'm 60 points because Clark will come out and they can put up points. They will put up points on Bethune. I will be impressed if Bethune keeps Clark under 28 points. I will really be impressed. And that's what it's going to have to take. If Bethune is going to win this ball game, they have to keep Clark under 28 points, 4 touchdowns. Not sure if they can do it, but that's why they play the game, right? So
it is.
All right. Now let's move over to the Division II CIAA matchups. We got 2 of them, 2 big time showdowns. We've got Virginia Union traveling to Charlotte to take on Johnson C. Smith, the Golden Bulls. Jamie, I feel like this is I don't know what the crowd might be like, but if the whole city of Charlotte that supports JCSU isn't in the house for this one, I'm going to be disappointed. This is an opportunity of so much big proportions here for Johnson C. Smith. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, this is a big time game for a couple of reasons. Number one, to see Virginia Union and Jada Byers and see what they are all about. I saw the colossal beatdown that they put on Kentucky State, and it was just a thing of like, it was just ugly. This game is the measuring stick for Johnson C. Smith, in my opinion. If they are for real, they beat Virginia Union. If they are for real, even if they keep it somewhat respectable or close, it would say a lot about the squad that they are ready to make that ascension into the upper echelon of the CIAA. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, this game is a 6 p.m. kickoff, which is kind of unique. There are not too many night games that they play in the CIAA, so you will get. And I gotta look and see. Right now, Jamie, to be honest, I don't know if this game is. Hold on, let me see. I can tell you real quick. Okay, yes, it'll be on the CIAA Sports Network. So I wasn't sure. Originally, I didn't have it on the list on the CIAA Sports Network, but you can watch it on the CIAA Sports Network. But I don't know whether they purposely scheduled it to be in the evening or whether it just kind of worked out that way. But I think it's fascinating because it sits opposite of the other big-time matchup that's taking place in the CIAA, and that's Winston-Salem State traveling to Ettrick, Virginia, to play Virginia State, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. What's your take on this one, James?
Another game in which you want to see if a team has made that leap up in Winston-Salem State. Of course, they played my Aggies very close and going in overtime. They did phenomenal. Dalen Lee at the quarterback position, runs that offense well. And, quite frankly, Winston-Salem State has some size defensively. So I'll be curious to see, because last year they wanted everybody on the coaching staff gone, and it's amazing to see them turn that thing all the way around. So going to Virginia State, I'll be curious to see if they are ready to make that CIAA jump and get into the it's divisionless. So whether they can become that second or that third or fourth team. But Virginia State has been there before. We'll see if Winston-Salem State is ready to take that leap back into the upper echelon of the CIAA.
Yeah, and I just saw a question from Edwin. Does the CIAA stadiums have lights, or do they play games as a cost-saving measure? Johnson C. Smith does have lights. Yeah. And I know Winston-Salem State, because of the stadium that they play in, they have lights there as well. I don't know what the reasoning behind those particular time slots are. But I mean, we do get, like I said, the opportunity to play that 1 o'clock, and then you move into the 6 o'clock for Winston-Salem. And I agree with Jamie 100%. This is a great opportunity for Winston-Salem. Look, they 2 consecutive overtime games. You showed me you were competitive. You should have beaten North Carolina A&T. Sorry, Jamie, but they could.
No, it is what it is.
Yeah, they could have. So here's now Virginia State, who was preseason #1, and this is that old look. And I know the CIAA doesn't play North-South anymore, but this is that week when they used to do North-South. So traditionally, the North, which is Virginia State and Virginia Union, they dominate the Southern teams. Well, this is a year where you actually got, this might be very competitive. This, I know they don't do divisions anymore, but this is a game that may very well be competitive. So look forward to that. I don't know. I was just looking on the CIAA site. The Virginia State game is not listed as part of the CIAA Sports Network package, but it may. So kind of take a look at that. But I can tell you the 6 o'clock game between Union and Johnson C is slated to be on the CIAA Sports Network, and that is free during the regular season. So you'll be able to tune in and watch that game for free. Okay, leaves us down to 3 games, 3 FCS matchups. Let's start with the battle for the real HU. As I like to say, Hampton versus Howard. No H. Because Hampton has owned this series. They have owned it last 2 decades. And I think they have won, I think an 11, I don't even have the stats, but I know it's a nice streak that they are currently on in this series. It's going to be in DC, 3:30 kickoff. Howard is going to, there's always a probability that your vice president and presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, Howard alum, there's always an opportunity that she may make an appearance. I don't know if she wants to be in the house for this one. Might not be pretty. It'll be a good game. I think it'll be a good game, but I don't think the script is going to change. I think this is Hampton's game, and I really expect Hampton to win this ball game against Howard. Sorry, Jamie.
You know what, man? I think it is Hampton's opportunity once again to win this ball game, because I think they're playing really well right now. If you look at Chris Sellers, if you look at how they're able to run the ball, even with their own 2-quarterback system, they're able to do some things. And just look no further than the last game they were in. Balanced offense, were able to play defense, able to stop the run. And I think that's what Howard specializes in, is running the football. I think when it comes to this particular game, it's a lot going on. A rivalry game, anything can happen. So I think Hampton to get the nod, but I think it'll be close. I'm not quite sure what Howard is yet. With the games they played, pulling out, last, minute victory against Mercyhurst. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach the game, but Hampton's playing really well right now. So I'll give the nod to them.
Yeah, and appreciate Dave for chiming in the chats. Hampton has won 7 straight, and the last time Howard won was in 2014 by a point. But if you even go back the decade, I think this millennium, 2 decades, I think the record is like 17-3 or something like that over the last 2 decades. It has not been a series, and so that's why I affectionately say this is the week that Howard becomes Howard. No H, as Hampton owns that H. And you Howard folks can say what you want to say every other week of the year. But this week, the H belongs to Hampton. Y'all need to go steal it. Find a way to steal it, or get a presidential order to get it back or something. I don't know, whatever you got to do. But that's what you need to do. That game is on ESPN Plus, 3:30 in the afternoon. Okay, moving over to the SWAC. Probably the SWAC game of the week, as already previously mentioned. Jackson State going on the road, taking on Grambling in the hole in a non-conference conference game. So despite whatever happens in this game, it does not affect conference standings. Could it be a preview of the SWAC championship game? Sure, anything's possible. Pigs can fly. Anything's can happen. Yes. Okay. So, but we got Jackson State versus Grambling in the contest. I believe this is a 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central kickoff. I'll confirm that here in a second, but I'll give you, Jamie, the floor. Your thoughts here, Jackson State and Grambling.
Well, wow. This is difficult because it really just depends on the sustainability of Grambling's offense. And if they're able to get some points from the passing game, I think they can make it competitive. But again, I don't know why this is a recurring theme, but I think Jackson State has established their identity as a downhill running squad who play action passes. And I think when their focus is to both stop the run and run the football effectively, play ball control somewhat, and take the opportunities away from Grambling. If Grambling is slow offensively in getting going, Jackson State should have no problem winning this game. When it comes to Grambling defensively, they've picked it up as far as creating turnovers. and things of that nature. But I think Jackson State, if you know they don't have the fumble bug, the quarterbacks are not going to give you many opportunities to intercept passes. So I think Jackson State has a slight edge in this ball game. I think it may be closer, especially if the offense wakes up for Grambling. But I think Jackson State clearly has the nod right now, or has the edge.
Yeah, I won't disagree with you on that one. It'll be a great. I think we will be. We'll have a new appreciation for Grambling if they get this victory at home. I think we will start talking about Grambling winning the West should they get this win. Even though, again, this is not a conference game, I just think our perceptions of Grambling will start to change. Maybe even our perceptions of Miles Crawley will start to change. But, hey, watch out for the defense. If Grambling State's defense can play at the level that they played this past Saturday, should be a good ball game. Should be a good ball game. That brings us to our final big game of the weekend. It's a game that they just circled. They just when it comes up in North Carolina, they just put a big old circle around this one. Whether you're in Greensboro or Durham, there's no love. They call each other the school down the street, the school up the road, the school, the little neighbor, little sister, little big brother. I don't know, but y'all have a different kind of rivalry when it comes to this one. We're talking about the Aggie Eagle Classic. North Carolina A&T travels to Durham to take on North Carolina Central. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern game. It is on ESPN Plus. It's in Durham. Before I throw it to Jamie, in the 80 previous meetings between these opponents, 80 previous meetings, A&T has a 44, 32, and 4 win percentage. That's 57.5 win percentage in this contest. So the A&T, I guess you could say you own this series. Not by much, but you own it enough to really poke out your chest. And more importantly, I think you the last couple of years have not been, they've gone to Central, right? Central's won the last, what, Jamie? 3?
I want to say just last year.
Really?
Yeah. Dave, correct me. But yeah, they got it last year. I'm not sure when it was played. Ooh.
Let's see.
Because it was played in Charlotte.
Last year, right. Last year, Central won 30-16. Year before,
I want to say the last
28-13.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2-game win streak. That's it. 2-game win streak. Yeah, 2021 was the last time that A&T defeated Central, and that was 37-14.
Yep. So it's one of those things where it's a heated rivalry. They played it at different venues. You know, I remember them playing it at Carter Finley Stadium, which is NC State's home, a while back, back in the day. Now they, moved it to Charlotte. Now it's back at home for a while. It'll move back to Charlotte in, I think, 2027. So just looking at the way that the team is shaped up, I think when you look at injuries being a huge factor, I think Walker Harris is the X factor in this because both teams are hurt. But when you have your starting signal caller for a squad, I think, you're at an advantage because I think you go into it with the game plan that you established and that you want. So until we know that, we won't know for sure. But when you look at the way that A&T is really still trying to establish their own identity, I think they've improved from last year. But I also think they are still seeking to get a 100% way of doing things. And we don't know what that is yet. Still very bad mistakes, untimely mistakes that cost them ball games. They played Delaware close in the first half, similar to the way they played Wake Forest, but just could not sustain drives, turning over the ball, things of that nature. But I think in a rivalry game, just like we saw against Winston-Salem State, there are some things that could happen. I think it'll depend on injury as well. I think you're dealing with with injury from the running back position, and you're dealing with offensive line issues as well with Cesar Monero, possibly being out. Not sure if he'll be back for this ball game or not. But when you're looking at Central on the other side, they have a middle running back in Taylor. And so I think he'll be able to run the football. Also, Walker Harris being the X factor will tell us a lot. Both teams didn't do well in their last games. And I think if they're able to stop the run, I'm talking about A&T, I think the game will be close. It's just a matter of being able to put up points against the Central defense, who is really formidable as well. So I'm not going to give a prediction of who will win, but I will say that this game should be closer, and I think whoever has the ball last will win the ball game.
I saw Dr. Cavill ask what was the record for the two schools when they were in the same classification. When did that classification change, Jamie? Any rough idea, roughly?
I'm not sure what year, because Central did come up from CIAA, as we all did. But
right.
As we all did. But I'm just not sure what year and what it changed. I had to do some research to see.
Well, because A&T was one of the founders of the MIAC, correct? So that was 79?
Mm-hmm.
Mid 70s, maybe something in the late 70s. So, and then, so yeah, I mean that's a good research question, Doc. Good talking point for one of the shows this upcoming week. I know Dave and those guys will be doing their show in the middle of the week. So there's a data point that I'm sure will be coming up. But the last 2 years, Central has won. We'll get back to Big Brother. Will Big Brother kind of control this series coming in? I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just gonna, we got our own worries in Alabama that we got to deal with. So I'll be watching this one from a secondary television set, but it'll be worth watching. And so
there's no Davius Richard walking through that door.
Yeah, will Walker Harris walk through that door right now?
Which is a great question. I'm telling you, that's the X factor.
Exactly. Everyone's still wondering, will Walker Harris walk through that door? No telling. But so that's something that we'll have to find out. Just as a reminder, all of these games, with the exception of the Clark, well, let me just run back down the television rundown for those again from these top 5 games. Clark, Atlanta, Bethune-Cookman, that game will be on HBCU Go. Also on HBCU Go, you'll have Winston-Salem State at Virginia State. Oh, I said I didn't know. Well, that's where it will be. According to what I have. Now, that is not on if you go to the CIAA website, it doesn't show that. But I believe I read or I had that down as an HBCU Go contest. The Virginia Union at Johnson C. Smith game, 6 o'clock at night, is on the CIAA Sports Network, which you can get on the CIAA.com. Then every other game that we mentioned is on ESPN+. Howard versus Hampton, Jackson State at Grambling, North Carolina A&T at Central. Even the Southern at Prairie View game is on ESPN+, and FAMU at Troy is on ESPN+. I mean, that is 8 top-tier games. This is the first big weekend of the HBCU football season. I'm sorry. I mean, it's been good thus far, but we've got 8 games to really sink our teeth into. And who knows, there's always some extra games which might pop up on the radar that we weren't even expecting. So all the more reason to get locked in to the games on Saturday. I want to encourage everybody to continue to watch the Black College Sports Network during the course of the week. Plenty of content as Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab shows will be running throughout the course of the week. On Wednesday, you can catch the O&G Strike Zone as we talk FAMU athletics heavy on that Wednesday show. Take a look out for a podcast from Charles Edmond, Brave Talk. He'll have the Cedric Thomas show, which will be during, we'll re-air. I know it airs live on Monday, but we'll re-air it on the network in the middle of the week and on the podcast platform. And then, of course, you got the Carlos Brown Show on Saturday morning. So, it's 11 a.m. Central, but noon Eastern. So kind of, noon, midday, whatever you want to call it. And then we come right back again and we do it on Sunday, and we will react to all of this good HBCU football that we've had a chance to digest. So, Jamie, any closing words as we get ready to shut it down for tonight?
Man, keep watching this football. You have plenty of arenas to be able to view it. Make sure that you're tuning in every week for this high quality content. That is all from me, sir.
All right. Well, Jamie, appreciate you and appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. However you've been watching us. I had an issue with the Instagram live feed, so sorry about that. But X stayed on, Facebook, YouTube stayed on. So, hey, we're winning. It's a good day. Got to thank again Coach Farasi Norman for joining us earlier in the show, and AD Drew for popping in as well. His name is still on the credits, so we haven't closed and changed all the locks just yet. But maybe keep your eyes open, folks. Maybe this week you'll hear the special announcement on what Drew has going on, and you'll understand a little bit why Drew had to take some time off from the show. But I'm thankful and appreciative to have Jamie here, and hopefully Mrs. Walker is not upset with you being on a little bit longer than normal, Walker. So
listen, Mrs. Walker's cooking right now, and
you lucky man.
She's looking at me sideways, so I got to get off of this.
Hey, with that said, I am going to shut it down. Remind you to watch the BCS or catch the BCSN Pod Zone everywhere that you listen and download podcasts. Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple and Google Podcasts. Just search BCSN Pod Zone and catch up with all of our shows. All right. For Jamie Walker, I'm Brian Fulford. Thanks for watching us tonight. God bless your teams. Back off the ledge, fans. It's too soon. Back off the ledge. Basketball season coming up. SWAC Media Day, Thursday and Friday, right here on the Black College Sports Network. Peace out, everybody.
As AD would say, I holla.